Welcome to Non-Human Entities YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and share if you enjoy this show.
And so Robert, yeah, what got you interested in Planet X? We've got Dr. Rand is on the line and Peter Kling's on the line, and they'll be in here in just a minute with us. So I want to give you a chance to lay out your story. I mean, what drove you down the road of Planet X? A lot of people interested, but then there's some who just think it's all nonsense.
And I understand that as well, Michael. And I being in the position you were about almost 4 years ago, being a talk show host, I know how it is to be in that position. But what really changed for me is during my show, when I first started, it was late 2010, early 2011. I, like everybody else, was trying to figure out what was going on, looking into 9/11 and free energy sources, and I just basically threw myself all in. And I was a business owner, Michael, in 2006, with my partner, and I really wasn't paying attention to anything. I was just trying to build a business. I was in the restaurant equipment business, and I was doing really well. And things were flourishing. In 2008, everything fell apart, and that's when I really started doing investigating and what was going on. I wasn't aware of what was happening. And just to say this, that I always believed in extraterrestrials. Okay, and even since I was a kid, I was fascinated with any documentary on space show. I mean, hell, I watched the Carl Sagan. The 10 parts or 11-part series, The Cosmos. I must have watched that 10, 20 times as a kid, Michael. So I was completely fascinated with it. But when everything started turning around for me is when the economy started collapsing. I started investigating what was going on, what was happening. And it got to the point where I realized that 9/11 was a complete fraud. And I think that was probably a big awakening point for many, many people, Michael. And of course, I was thrown into the mix with that, losing everything, losing my business, losing my house. I mean, I lost it all. I was just building at that point. I two years, Michael, 2.5 years. I had already built a $500,000 a year business, all gone, taken away in an instant.
So you were in that point of your life where you looked up and says, "Good, I hope Planet X is coming."
You know what? In a sense, I kind of felt that way about a couple of years ago. Yeah. I really did. But that was the anger of it all. And then I pushed that anger aside, and then I started really, really investigating, actually 2.5, 3 years ago. And I was doing a little investigating as I was doing the radio show. But the realization was, as people that have put all their own effort and research on the web, and it's all over the place. I mean, video after video, of course, Zachariah Sitchin, Dave Mead, so on and so forth, and I won't bring up Marshall Masters, I promise.
You. He's the only one. I mean, I'd if he would get in the conversation with us, I'd be happy to have him, but he won't do that. So,
well, I'm sad for that. I really am. I know what's happened, and I'm sorry for that, Michael.
Yeah, well, it's all right. He's still doing his thing, and I'm doing mine, so I'm not going to sweat it.
Right.
But
what, Michael, to get back to what I was saying, what really made it real for me in 2011 is I was doing the shows, was really getting to the UFO thing, and I had a roundtable discussion. It was 4 people, and you remember Ed Grimsley. He's passed on now, and a friend of his named William, Bill, he was supposed to be a guest as well. Well, on that show that evening, we were going to have a discussion, about extraterrestrial UFOs, orbs, everything. And William was supposed to be calling in, and the show's live, and I kept trying to call him in. But every time I called him, it was just dead. There was no busy signal. There was nothing. It was just a dead line. So I was texting Ed. I said, Ed, is this a joke? Is he playing a game or something? I mean, I can't get him on the show. So Ed says, look, let me call him directly and see what's going on. Ed tried to call him, and he got the same thing, dead line, blocked. So I'm thinking, okay, these two are playing a joke on me. So come to find out that William had a fiancée at the time. Now they're married. But Bill's fiancée, Alma, was a channeler, okay? Mm-hmm. So what happens is she is told by our friends upstairs, she is told to call into the show, okay, and explain why, Bill is being blocked and can't come onto the show. So she calls in now. She's extremely psychic and an incredible channeler, okay? This is an absolute, and I'll be able to go into that a little further. She calls in, tells us, okay, Bill can't call in. He's being blocked because of dark forces, dark entities that do not want him to speak on the air. So now you got to understand my position where I was. This was all new to me. I was only 1 year into my broadcast, and I'm saying, yeah, okay, sure, fine, channelers being blocked. I didn't believe any of it, Michael. But I'm on the radio, and I'm thinking, let's let it move forward and see where it goes. So Bill isn't on the show the whole night. Finished the show. Then finally, he's able to call me. He calls me. He says, look, this is what happened. I was blocked. I'm telling you, man, I was blocked. I didn't really know what to think. I thought it was... I didn't know what to make of it, Michael. Okay?
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Mm-hmm. So what I ended up doing is setting up a show just with William and Alma to come on and explain what happened with that whole deal, okay? But then you have to understand that I didn't know Alma was a channeler. She was just being told, it was information that she was telling me, but I didn't know she was a channel, okay? So they tell me the whole story, and I said, okay, fine, let's do this. Let's set up a show, you and William. So we set up a show for, I think it was the following month. We set up the show, and Alma and William come on and talk about how the whole thing happened, how he was blocked, and Alma, all of a sudden, she goes into an altered state, into a channel. And we have an ET entity, ET, and this is extraterrestrial because, of course, their psychic abilities are extraordinary, and they can they can project their thoughts directly into our physical beings and, express that information that they want to get out. So an ET by the name of Econ, okay, Econ. Now, get this, and I know it's going to be really tough for a lot of people to get this, okay, but Econ is the equivalence of, let's say, a 14-year-old child. But this 14-year-old child is 300 years old and about 15 feet tall. Okay?
Oh, damn.
So, yeah. So now I'm getting this information, and her voice had completely changed as this channel Econ comes through and starts explaining about what has happened, why things have happened, and here's the big thing. They had been waiting. Get this, Michael. This is the part that really blew me away, man.
All right.
They had been waiting for me to start a radio show long before I knew I was ever going to start a radio show. Now, that was shocking enough to me. And granted, I still didn't believe a damn word of it, okay?
All right.
Yeah.
And in a minute, we're gonna have to invite these guys on, or they're gonna wind up leaving us.
Well, yeah, no, invite him on. Invite him on. I just want to finish the rest of the rest of this, so you know where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Invite Jason and Peter on.
They're here. They can speak whenever, whenever. So, hey, Peter.
The lines are open.
Yes. Hello, Dr.
I'm
Rand.
listening. Robert, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm just listening to what you're saying here, and it's most fascinating. And I think of my own situation, and which happened at the age of 18, and like you were, when we got to the cosmos, that was fantastic. But what got me started down this interesting path was Eric von Däniken back in the 70s. And
sure.
This was a situation where I was already seeing future events now for several years, and then Eric came out with his book on, the Chariots
of Fire. Chariots of the Gods. I'm sorry, not Chariots of Fire.
That's a running movie.
Right.
But anyway, but which is absolutely wild, because that's how my whole UFO experience started, which a gold chariot landed in my backyard,
right,
with somebody at the helm controlling it. And this, we're not here to talk about my experience anyway, but it's interesting. There's this constant theme through people that are waking up, and once we start to comprehend it and understand where this is going, it's a lot easier to get a handle on. That there's so many people that can channel so much information, but you got to be careful where that information is coming from.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you, Peter. And this is why I was alluding to, because I thought it was a bunch of nonsense. Okay, even as Econ was coming through. Now, in the process of that information coming through, she had told me on air, that we had multiple life experiences together. Okay, this is still going on. This is the first show telling me we have multiple life experiences going on, and I was blown away at this point. I still didn't believe it. I was blown away. And we're going towards the end of the show now. We go through the whole spiel of everything and who they are and where they're coming from. And this is the weird thing, Peter. As I'm talking, I start to get this funny feeling in my stomach. All you guys know what it's like to feel in love, to fall in love for the first time.
I know what it's like to get your heart broke, too. Yes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Michael. Well, you get those butterflies in your stomach when you meet that special person in your life, and all of a sudden this started happening to me as I'm talking to her through Alma, and I become really flush, and I don't know what the hell is going on.
Ooh. And
all of a sudden, I say, look, I'm glowing. I feel all this love, and I said to her, I said, look, when all these events take place and all the changes happen, I said to her, and it is a her, by the way. It's a her. And I said to her, I said,
I've heard that story before.
Right. And I said to her,
and somebody called me looking for help, seriously, because what he thought was a her wasn't a her.
Yeah, no, it was
that's a shapeshifter.
Good point, Peter. But no, it's definitely a her. They definitely have, a separation of species in this class that I'm talking about. But what all these feelings were emerging, and I said, like the last time this was, I said, you know what? I can't wait till all this stuff happens to when you guys come down. And I can, put my arms around you, give you a great big hug, and tell you how much I love you. And she says, well, you will. And I said, really? She says, yes, it's going to happen. And then she says, my brother, my love, she says, have you ever seen our ships? Well, I said, I've seen lots of them on videos, on YouTube and on the internet, but I said, I've never personally seen one. She says, would you like to? I said, I would absolutely love to. She says, okay, you will. So the show ends, right? And I'm just kind of boggled in the mind. I walk out of my studio, walk in the house, and I'm with my parents. They're elderly, so I'm taking care of both of them. And my mother always listened to my show. God bless her. What a devoted what a devoted listener. And I said, Ma, what did you think about all this? She goes, you know what? That was amazing. She goes, I'm not sure what to think, but it was amazing. And now this is in December, and it was really cold that year. It was probably in the mid-20s, and that's pretty cold for Phoenix. So when the air's real cold, you can't really smell any fragrances. Right now, I just walked out of the studio, went to the house, smelled nothing, turned around, and I said, I just need to step outside and get a fresh fresh air, excuse me. And it was like 2 seconds. I opened the door, and as soon as I walk out, I mean, I was hit with a wall of the most powerful fragrance you could ever imagine. It was like a mixture of roses and sugar that was so powerful it almost knocked me on my butt, and my eyes got as big as bowling balls. And I was like, "What the heck is this?" And I start walking around in this, and I'm going, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" Well, I opened the door. And I said, Ma, you got to come out here. You got to smell this. She goes, what? What's going on? I said, just come out here. And she walks out, and she's like, oh, my Lord, what the hell is this? So we're both walking around with our jaw on the floor with this incredible fragrance, at about midnight, and I'm walking around in the circle trying to figure out what the hell this is. And as I turn around, I look over the roof line of the house, and there is this craft. And Michael, I'm telling you, it was incredible. It was long, thin, rectangular craft. Now, it's dark, so I can't see the whole thing, but all I can see is the light. So here's this rectangular, thin light with this, the only way I can describe it is a sine wave going through the center of this white light, but it's a rainbow sine wave flowing through the center of this craft. And I was floored.
A craft with a rainbow? You might have been a craft with a rainbow. I was going to say it could explain all the probing.
I definitely had no probing. That was incredible, man. I was just shocked, man. I was blown away. I didn't know what to say. My jaw was on the floor, and immediately I called Alma and I told her, and I said, "Hey, look, this is what happened." And she's like, "Oh gosh." She says, when I do channelings and you have a contact, usually they don't appear to that person for about a month or two. She said, they appear to you tonight. I said, this is very, very important. And so all of a sudden I'm thrown into this, volcano of information and ideas and ET experience. I was just totally blown away. And then they said, okay, look, Alma Williams said, look, I talked to them. You need to explain all this on the next show. And I go, okay, fine. I'll explain it to them. And Alma went into a channel again the next time this happened, and I went through the whole explanation. I mean, I went through detail for detail, and of course it's a little vague, foggy now because it's been a long time. But the bottom line was, after I went through the whole spiel, Econ channel, through Alma says, well, that was a fabulous and very explicit explanation that you gave, but why didn't you tell them that you were on board our craft? And then I really lost it. I said, well, what do you mean I was aboard in your craft? I never left the ground. I was here the whole time. She says, no. She says, you were on board our craft for 1 minute of your time. We took you and your mother both when you were outside on our craft to meet us. The mic went dead, Michael, for about a minute because I just didn't know what the hell to say at that point.
Isn't that'd be?
Do you have a memory implant of this? Do you have any memory whatsoever?
Michael, excuse me, Peter, I do not. I do not have a memory of this. And here's the thing.
I'm analyzing this.
ET is spiking drinks.
Huh?
I say ET is spiking drinks. He's taking you without you knowing it, you know. But go ahead.
Yeah, Michael, I wish that were the case, but the problem was that just to jump forward here, because I know I'm taking a lot of time, and all three of us need to get involved in this conversation. But the point is, well, I'll make it real short. The next time this event happened, and this was verified by many people, is when I still had my business. I hadn't gone out of business yet. I had my partner in the office, and I was getting ready to leave the office. It was 4:45, okay? And this is verified by many people. I left my office at 4:45. It only takes me 20 minutes to get home from where my office was to my house. 20 minutes. When I arrived at the house, it was an hour and 15 minutes later, and I had no explanation for it, and everybody was questioning me, where were you? What the hell happened to you? And they came up with all kinds of explanations. I said, no, I left 15, 20 minutes ago. And here's the craziest part. When I was on the freeway driving home, this is bizarre. I don't know how to explain it, but an overwhelming exhaustion came over me. It was instant. Like, I'm wide awake, I'm driving, and all of a sudden, I'm driving, and I'm just so tired, I can barely keep my eyes open. And I'm telling you guys, when I got home, I don't know how the hell I made it because I was so tired. I could barely keep my eyes open. When I walked in the house, and they're like, where the hell have you been? I said, what do you mean? 20 minutes. No, it's 6 o'clock. My jaw was open. I said, I can't talk about this right now. I can't tell you anything about this. I need to go lay down. And I went and laid down, and I slept for 3 hours solid instantly. I got up, and we had the same discussion. Nobody believed me. I called my partner. I said, Ken, when did I leave the office? He says, you left at 4:45. I left 10 minutes after you. They all heard it. It was on a speakerphone. And they were all looking at me going, okay, so what the hell happened? And nobody was still believing me until I had the next show. Well, prior to that, myself and Bob Dean, we went to L.A. and saw Alma and William because I needed an explanation. I need to know what the hell happened to me.
So what did happen to you? Do you know? I mean, what did they do to you?
Well, it's not what they did to me. They didn't do anything to me, because I explained earlier that I had multiple lifetimes with Econ. I'm here, as everybody else is here on this planet, for a purpose, to help awaken the people to understand what the heck is going on. I've done my part. Michael, you're definitely doing your part. Everybody involved in this movement, of the truth movement, awakening, is doing exactly the same thing. They told me, okay, and I asked one of my guests when this was going on. I was thinking about having a regression of what happened, but this is what they told me. They said, my brother, first of all, you were with us. Get this, guys. I was with them for 14 and a half weeks in that hour and 15 minutes that I was missing. I was with them 14 and a half weeks. And my mind exploded, because that's when I had gone to California to find out, where I'd been, what I'd done, who did I meet, where did we go, what galaxy did we go to, what did we explore. I wanted to know everything. And you know what the answer that I got was? And it really, really upset me. They said, it's not time for you to know now. And I really, really got mad. I really got upset. I said, what do you mean it's not time for me to know now? And they said, listen, if we were allow you to remember everything that you experienced with us in that time you were gone, do you think you'd really want to finish living the rest of your life on this planet?
Was that bad?
Say that again,
I
Michael?
say it was that bad?
It was that bad.
Well, that's what they told you.
Right, that's what they told me. And it's not the factor of bad or good. It's I could experience any number of things, but they wouldn't allow me to remember. But what they did say at the end of it, it says, when it's time for you to remember, you will remember. Now, I spoke to several regressionists who had been on my show at the time, and they said, look, if they told you that, they told me directly. They said, Robert, if that's what they said, let it be and let it happen naturally. And also, my friend Bob Dean,
that's a ticking time bomb.
well, and it could be.
It is.
But but Peter, you got to remember this. You know who Bob Dean is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Bob Dean went through that exact type of regression through his contacts, and you know what happened to him? He went into a massive depression for 5 years. He didn't want to speak to anybody. He didn't want to deal with anybody after they lifted the little teapot lid off his head.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that.
He remembered so many things from past lives, and with the contacts that he had, it put him in a deep depression. And he told me directly, he said, Robert, be careful, because I went through this. And he says, this could spin you in a deep depression. And I thought about it. I mean, guys, I thought about this for 6 months. And I said, okay, fine. I'll just let it come when it comes. But here's the part of Planet X that I wanted to bring into this. They spoke about this on my show. They said that they showed me 3 screens when I was there, okay? 3 different screens.
I'm listening.
Here's us now. This is our Earth now. This is what it may be, and this is what it may be. In other words, they're saying we are the ones who make the choice of where things are going to go. In other words, history is written as we move forward in time and how things change. Now, I haven't seen a lot of things to tell me that, we've averted this situation. I think we are going to go through a very, tumultuous time. I think we are going to face some very devastating times. I think, and what, let me put it this way.
Let me interrupt you for a second here. This is a lot of what I've been talking about over the past year, and it's one of the major reasons for the name change on Letters to Earth. And it's totally congruent. The message hasn't changed, but it's Letters to Earth, the future is yours. And it's because of exactly what you're saying here as to what our future is. You see, it all comes down to how we choose. So there's 2 different timelines. One of them is what we identified as the catastrophic timeline. This is when I was doing a considerable amount of work with Alfred Leonard Weber 5-6 years ago. The other one is the positive timeline, and there's a divergence, but it's us that choose which path we go down. This is when we go back into scriptures, what Jesus said, broad and spacious is the road to destruction, but narrow is the gate, is the path to everlasting life. So, and he says, many searching for it will not find it. And that is, it's that there is a duality in the future, but the duality lies within us.
Well, Peter, just let me throw a little caveat on there, that the future exists simultaneously because everything exists in a duality, and it's instantaneous. Because you have to remember, in my thought process of what I've been talking about, the past, present, and future exist simultaneously. Yes. It all exists concurrently. There is no future, there is no past. It is only in the timeline that we exist. Now, to further that statement, okay, this is the physical universe that we are existing in this 3D plane as we conceive it. But there are multi-planes. In other words, there are planes upon planes upon planes upon planes of existence. Hence, the trans-dimensional beings that exist in this.
And this is exactly what I've been saying from the beginning and what I wrote in Letters to Earth. We actually live, based on string theory, M theory, and superstring theory. String theory says that in order for us to exist, there needs to be 7 other spatial planes. The fact is, we don't live in dimensions 1, 2, and 3. We live in dimensions 8, 9, and 10. The other dimensions, according to how the mathematics works out, existed before our physical universe existed, and it can exist just fine without our physical universe. However, our physical universe totally depends on those other 7 spatial planes being there. If they're not there, we are not here. That's string theory gets into really the origin of energy and explains it mathematically. M theory goes into membrane theory on how universes are created, or how dimensions are created, well, actually universes. And then you go into superstring theory, which says, well, look, there could be an endless amount of variables, and there could be an endless amount of dimensions we just don't know. And when we go back to what is now fractal science, which used to be fractal technology, that's exactly what that's exactly the truth.
And guys, here's my only problem with the timeline thing is that some of these guys out there, I'll mention none of their names, will use that as an excuse. Well, oh no, well, what I told you was going to happen in the future actually happened. It's just we're lucky it didn't happen on this timeline. And it's like, that kind of bothers me.
Well,
it bothers me too, Michael, because I don't fall into that belief system. And the reason I say this is that we haven't averted the situation.
Exactly.
Is this. Because all these people are capturing these extra solar bodies, which I think is part of our binary system, that we are all seeing now. Michael, I sent you that video from Brazil of the 2 suns coming up, okay? You have it. I sent it to you.
I see it.
So when we're looking at this, we got to say to ourselves, okay, what are we facing? Is this a natural cycle of this solar system being a binary system, which most solar systems are binary and trinary, and very rarely is there a single sun with its satellites that orbit around it.
And
we've been lied to this whole time, Michael.
But listen, here's what I tell people when they do send me something like, they send me a picture and say, look, I took this yesterday. I usually put them on an assignment and tell them I want you for the next week to take a picture, take it at different times, sun's coming up, and keep a record of it for the week and then share it with me. And because if that happens, then you should, and it's there, you should be able to duplicate it. And that's
right. And that's the thing, Michael, that I was able to duplicate it the year before. I just never sent it to anybody because I was basically following this cam off somebody else's work. Say, hey, you might want to go to this cam, guys, and look at this and this was in 2014. Which we saw the second sun rise, and people are trying to say, well, it's a camera anomaly, or it's it's a flare. No. There was no flare because flares would come up at the same time all the time when the sun comes up. You would see it instantly. Why does this object only come up between late March, early April, and then September, and then get larger the following year? So I watched it from 2014 to 2015 to 2016, and that's what I sent you, 2016, Michael. And now I'm looking at 2017, and I think, like I had said to you the last time the 3 of us spoke, Peter and Jason, I said, I think this may be the year, and I had also mentioned the fact that my friend Bob Dean, who's deep insider, the Good Old Boys Network, said, and he was doing that interview here at my house. When he said that, he said, September, bank on it, 2017, it's coming. And sure enough, where are we? Look at the earth changes. Look at the devastation. I mean, I can name event after event after event that's been taking place, whether it's from the sea, with all the sea life, washing ashore because their magnetic their magnetic fields have been altered, are washing up at shores all over the place. Fish dead fish everywhere, birds falling out of the skies. And what about all the animal attacks that have been taking place? I mean, this is getting crazy.
Explain how the Schumann resonance goes from 7.83 hertz into the beta range of 13 to 35, which is when our brains are vibrating between 13 and 35 hertz. That's beta state. That's where fight and flight is. And
Thank
so,
you, Peter.
Yeah, well, we've talked about. Well, I've been talking about this for quite some time, but the Schumann resonance now vibrating between 13 and 35 hertz is something that's just recently come about.
It's off the charts, Peter. It's off the charts. It's never been experienced.
When it's been as high as 65 hertz, I saw on one of the readouts. This was several months ago, and I proposed at that time that may have been caused by CERN, because they were doing work at the Hadron Collider, and you know, that's a whole nother situation in itself. Boy, there's a show right there, in Revelation chapter 9. But regardless, from what I understand on Planet X, and I will get back to this dual timeline that we're on, because that's exactly it. It's us who decide what our future is going to be.
And Robert,
and all of this information is what we need to take into consideration. Yeah, Michael.
I was just wanting to quick, Robert, I don't know if you're able to do it right now, but any chance you could send that to me again, because I'm going and looking, and now it's not in the file I put it in. Because I want to look at it again. It's been a little while. I'll take a look at it so I could comment more on it. But if you could send it, I got my email open. But go ahead, Peter.
Michael, I'll send it to you right now.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
No problem.
Let me just continue on the Schumann resonance thing. Now, or on Planet X, actually, we know that now the Earth is vibrating in the beta state. That's why everybody's most people's sleep patterns seem to be disturbed one way or the other. But from what I understand, and I don't know how anybody knows exactly where it is, but from what I understand, it's supposed to be like passing over the top of us and going underneath us, or vice versa. But it's in an elliptical orbit. It's not actually going around with the patterns. It's coming over the top and going out the bottom, or something like that.
Planet X?
Planet X, yeah.
No, I understand that. I've heard all kinds of things, just like you guys. But, I was told that it's actually going to be well outside of us, but it's going to have enough pull on everything around us that's how it's going to affect us. Now, I don't know. But,
Michael...
Michael,
that's exactly right.
As it comes back around, is when I'm gonna be more concerned about. It's on an inbound trajectory now.
Peter, it's going to cause a 25 to 26 degree shift. But here's the thing:
I would worry more about the crap that comes with it. But go ahead.
I'm banking on that.
That's exactly.
That's exactly. I figured it's going to become subtropical.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. The thing I was going to say, and I think, Peter, you're absolutely right in what you said. I think it's not going to be as violent as everybody thinks, because it varies on how it, the closest planet, which we all are saying is Nibiru, Planet X, will come close enough to create that magnetic pull to actually flip us at 180 degrees. And my personal belief is, it's never actually really done that. What it has done throughout the eons of time that it's been here, and it's created that, has always left life on the planet. So it's never been that drastic. What I think it usually does is probably create a shift of 25 to 26 to maybe 30, 35 degrees shift. And that's bad enough. I mean, think about this. Every coastal city that exists will be washed away. But there's proof of that. We've already had the discoveries. It's been shown. The proof exists.
Hey, Dr. Rand, are you there?
I'm here, buddy. I'm just interesting. I'm listening very interestingly.
Okay, I was just going to say, I don't know. You've been so quiet there. I'm sorry. It's not that I didn't forget about you. Hello, Dr. Rand.
Oh, no. I'm just enjoying these different perspectives.
Well, great. Well,
You see, we see all of this going on right now, and so this is where we are gaining accurate knowledge, because what we're talking about here, I mean, we're talking about aliens, Planet X, the future of planet Earth. It could be extremely terrifying if you don't know what goes on beyond that. You know, people are thinking, "Oh, this is the end of Earth." No.
No, never is.
Exactly what you said. But the biggest problem that we face, and the experts will agree with this. As a matter of fact, Matthew Stein, great person. I've interviewed him a couple of times, not too long ago. Wrote the book When Technology Fails. Matthew Stein is a graduate of Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's got a degree in engineering, and he wrote a book on when this technology is going to fail.
I just had him on the other night.
Well, then he told you the number one problem that we're facing in the future is the electric grid going
the grid,
down.
yeah, that's the whole nut in a nutshell.
Right, and that also relates to exactly what we're talking about, because you can basically understand that what Ed Dames has been talking about for years and years and years. He says, this extrasolar thing is going to come down and basically wash us down with this solar radiation, which is going to put down the power grid, and a whole hell of a lot of people aren't going to be left. Why? Because if you don't have fresh water, if you don't have power, because back in the late 1800s, everybody knew how to live off the land. Guess what? That doesn't happen anymore. It's just farmers. If you happen to be a farmer, you're going to do just fine. But you know what? If you live in the inner city, you're not going to do so well. You're not going to fare so well when this whole thing comes down.
Well, here's my thing.
This is where the prophecies come right into play out. I mean, this is one of the things that Jesus spoke about, is when it was time to leave the city. And I can go back and give you the historical account, but you are 100%
exactly, Peter.
correct.
I heard you talk about this the other night. Just to say, Michael, I just sent that off to you. You should have it.
Oh, okay, yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. And guys, real quick, I'll just add my 2 cents. And like I said before, Planet X comes by, causes all this havoc and damage and destruction. And really, you got to be lucky if you're in a place you're not affected should this happen, right? So for me, I'm going to let the young people worry about surviving. And if something like that comes, I hope I'm right in its freaking path. That's all I can say. But
you sound like the old.
Gonna stand on the beach and watch you coming.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh Lord, Michael.
I'll be that guy that radio.
It's not as bad as you think it's going to be.
Well, it's gonna be horrific for people that are in densely populated areas.
If I can't have pizza, it's getting pretty bad.
Michael, I thought about that, and I thought, living off the grid, dang, it's going to be a pain in the butt to make a pepperoni mushroom pizza. I got to grow the pig. I got to get the seasonings. It's going to take me a year for the pepperoni just to do that. and I can handle the tomatoes and the mushrooms, and we can grow the flour, but the dang pepperoni, come on, we're talking about a pig and then aging of the meat.
I'm going to make a deal with the neighbor. You collect the water, I'll save the pizzas.
Well, Jason, you've been so quiet, and I loved interviewing you in the past. By the way, I hope you remember who I am, but you've been quiet. You've been quiet in the corner over there.
Well, I'm most interested in your personal account as being a contactee. And
yeah, we could make a whole show out of that. But go ahead, Doctor. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Oh, that's all right. And my respect for Peter, of course, has developed over the past year. And Michael, thank you for, of course, putting the show on for us tonight. And more importantly, the reason I've been kind of silent is that you two guys have given me great pause tonight. I must tell you. I had prepared some material for tonight, and I thought that it would be a real good idea for you guys to set the stage, which you did beautifully. So if I could interject just a few thoughts here, okay?
Sure.
The first point that you guys brought up, which of course touches me deeply because I've been a contactee since I was a very, very small child. And then, of course, having that experience on board the craft at age 11 for almost 4 hours, which, by the way, I'm writing in my memoir. There was a very prominent author in the 70s. His name was Gordon Creighton, and he wrote a book called The Humanoids. And it was one of the books that I kind of, ground my teeth on. And I want to read, if it's okay, I want to read an excerpt from his book, which deals with the subject that we're talking about, which is the contactee phenomena. I'm going to be quoting. For some years past, it has been increasingly obvious that the very kernel of our problem is the so-called, quote, contactee report, unquote. It's so incredible, so baffling, that the instinctive reaction of some folks first hearing about it has been to fight shy of it altogether. But we cannot ignore it, because it is virtually all the material we have to work with. It is the contactee story, and not the flying saucer story or the UFO report, that we must first endeavor to understand. If and when we have grasped what these tales of landings and of contacts with Earthian entities mean, we may perhaps be on the road to understanding some of the larger aspects of the problem of becoming a contactee. Now, Robert, let me address you. Let me address you directly here. You should consider yourself very, very lucky, and especially gifted in that you may, in fact, have been taken aboard a craft, which is not unusual for contactees. So the advice that was given to you, remember when you were asking the question of, you wanted to know this and you wanted to know
Absolutely.
that?
Jason, I just need to say this. I consider myself extremely lucky in that aspect. It's not that it was something that was, out of my realm, and I always wanted something like this. But it's like, think about this for a second. It's like you're nominated for a Grammy Award, okay? And you guys take this with a grain of salt, okay? You're nominated for a Grammy Award and find out that it's taken away from you because, well, we only put you up there because we couldn't find an artist who was slightly better than you, so we just threw you in there, kind of thing. You are given the golden key to, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, only to find out that all its secrets will never be revealed to you. That's what it kind of felt like, okay, at that very moment. But don't misconstrue what I said. I feel myself very special and lucky to have experienced that.
Now, if I might interject here just for a second, because, Doctor, I know that we've talked about your alien contact from early on and the different craft that were involved in what you've seen in your experience. And Robert, you've mentioned, extraterrestrial craft or interdimensionals in yours as well. I was never taken to any craft. I was taken underground, which is quite interesting because not too many people are taken underground. I only know of a couple of other people that this has actually happened to. One contacted me within 24 hours after I first told my alien story, which I never talked about. I wasn't allowed to talk about seeing the future. I had alien contact. You really think I was going to start talking about that now? So I kept that hidden for years. But it ended. It wasn't just one trip either. It was 4 or 5. And it's shortly after my 18th birthday. And I believe it was on the last contact, or actually, I can't say exactly the last contact, was that I was let know, they gave me a final warning after they told me they were going to kill me. But I was in their presence when they let it be known that they assigned somebody to kill me. And I was in shock.
Peter, if I may interject something here, it sounds like what you experienced is a lot of the ET. Well, I'm okay. Let me back that up. It sounds like what you experienced is part of the covert, deep state scenario, which are deep state entities, military or whatnot, and ETs being probably the Greys. Which species? I have no clue, Peter. But they have been working, and this is information that's been put out forward by a lot of people, that you were manipulated and mind controlled in some kind of way. Now, I'm not saying that actually happened to you, Peter, but that's the kind of scenario that I'm kind of hearing from you.
Here, my thought was that the one thing that made total sense was when Karen Udis brought up Homo capensis. I thought, oh my goodness, the cheese has slid off this woman's cracker. But then I started to research Homo capensis and who they were supposed to be, and I'm like, wait a minute. The people who I made contact with were very human-looking people, and everybody had to wear monk's robe, well, what appeared kind of like what would look like a monk's robe, and everybody had their hoods up, so you couldn't see the extent of their heads. And Homo capensis is supposed to be subterranean, so I don't know. All I can tell you is that they're also supposed to be ruling those who rule the planet. And if that's the case, that would explain a 500-year-old connection back to when the church turned around and condemned my family and started to execute us systematically for 300 years. So there's a long connection here.
Let me ask all three of you. I want to hear from Jason and Michael and yourself, Peter. What do you think the connection with this, all of a sudden, the information coming out of Antarctica would relate to? Because I think it's deep-seated, very ancient, and I think it may help change the process of the technology that we have been following, which is a controlled construct by the powers that be to keep us enslaved in their system of manipulation and monetary manipulation in order to continue their controlled evolution of our species. I'd like to see what you think. And Michael, I want to see what you think of that video as well, by the way.
Can I address this first, if you don't mind, because this may have a direct connection back to Nelson Mandela's third death of December 5th, 2015.
The Mandela effect, huh?
Well, not so much the Mandela effect, but every once in a while somebody throws you a bone. And it's like a piece of information which makes so much sense, but you can't verify it. You can't find the end result of it. And I got this guy came on joined me on Facebook, and he was sending me link after link after link after link, and I was like, my goodness, what's he do? Spend all day sending me links? And seriously. And he all of a sudden he made a comment on something about Nelson Mandela's funeral, and so wait a minute, okay, I got to look at this closer. And he made the comment, so I engaged him in it, and he wrote me back, and he said, well, yeah, you did know that there was a black cube tent set up behind behind the arena where they were holding the funeral at, and it's alleged that the entity Marduk was there signing treaties with all of the world's representatives that went to Mandela's funeral. Even the Vatican, he said, signed the treaty. The only country that did not sign the treaty, it was Israel. Israel would not sign the treaty with Marduk, interestingly enough. Who's Marduk? Marduk is the chief of the Babylonian gods. He is the Babylonian name for the Sumerian god Anu. Anu is the god of the flat-domed earth.
Right. And I was trying to bring your video up. That's what I've been trying to do, like the last 10 minutes, I think. Trying to come up. Oh no! I've seen the video.
I've been watching, Michael. I've been watching.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it on screen here for everyone else to see, though. And for some reason, the stupid thing on my end isn't working. So I just sent a message to Ira. So maybe we'll be able to show it to everyone. So that's what I've been doing, everyone. Not having conversations with people while they're talking. I'm listening. But
let me jump in here.
Doctor, if I might interject before, and I'll give you the floor in just a second. What happened and we just look at what's going on during the Mandela ritual funeral. You have to remember that there was a crazy man that was translating in a language that no person knowing sign language on the face of the planet understood, and he was standing next to every dignitary down there, including Obama. And he claimed that he was watching angels flying around in the arena as he was translating. Now, it's just a short hop from South Africa down to Antarctica, and we've got a lot of dignitaries that have gone to Antarctica. And if we look at the monuments that are around the world, both in Mesoamerica and in Africa, but primarily Egypt, where we've got the Great Pyramids, it would be ludicrous to believe that there wasn't more of the same under the ice in Antarctica. So if you look at the movie, what is it, AVP, Alien versus Predator, where they beat the whole
yeah,
through the ice?
I watched that many times, Peter.
Yeah, well, there you go. Less the aliens and predators as they portrayed them.
And I think that was a tall tale sign. I think they were trying to tell us. And again, I think Hollywood does that all the time. I think there are people on the inside who want us to know, and they try and leak this out. Jason, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No.
No, that was me. I'm saying I'm trying to put this damn video up, and I see little dots flashing. I don't know what the hell. Go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead, Dr. Rand. I'm sorry.
What I'd like to do is I don't want to steer from where we're at. What I'd like to do is clarify a little bit something regarding this issue of contactees, which the three of us and Michael, although you've not been personally contacted, you certainly have had several sightings, correct?
Yeah, they've teased me.
All right. What I'd like to do is, when I represented the United States at the first World UFO Congress, which took place in Tucson in May of 1991, I prepared a document which I presented called the UFO ETUT Timeline Enigma. When did it begin and where will it end? I want to read a little bit of an excerpt from it because it deals with what an ET is versus what a UT is. ET being extraterrestrial and UT meaning ultra-terrestrial. So let me begin with what I wrote and presented at that meeting on ETs. I presented it in the form of a series of what-ifs, okay? Okay. What if extraterrestrials, ETs, represent a much younger, advanced cosmic intelligence force which may in fact exist in a dual reality form representing both benevolent and malevolent intentions, i.e. the Greys, the EBEs, which are the extraterrestrial biological entities, or perhaps the purported reptilian-like creatures from the Zeti Reticuli system. Now, both are suspected of being in contact with many of the world's governments for well over 70 years, and in many cases suspected of striking secret deals and pacts with not only our government, but with top-secret organizations like MJ-12, PI-40, and 54-12. Question: did they covertly agree to exchange high-tech information to gain Earthian resources, which means establishing secret underground research facilities and, in many cases, the right to abduct or experiment with humans and animals? In case of the animals, most likely cattle, producing other types of animal mutilization. Now I want to go to UTs. Question: what if ultra-terrestrials, UTs, represent a much older, more complex and highly developed, spiritually oriented cosmic intelligence force which may exist in a primary reality form of benevolent intention and behavior, i.e. the blondes, also called the Nordics, who are, by our human standards, 7 feet tall, blue-eyed, fair-haired, and fair-skinned. Throughout history, it is rumored they have been in contact with many of the world's governments, key scientists, and simply ordinary folk, while most often promoting goodwill, sometimes sharing timely, important knowledge and information covering many fields, disciplines useful to mankind during his troubled sojourn through Earthian history. That's the end of the quote. Now I want to hypothecate on that just a second, and then I'll turn it back to you guys.
Okay.
In my case, they were UTs. They were not ETs in the classic sense. I'm drifting toward the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis as being the more positive one that's been interfacing with the Earth through time memorial, all the way back to caveman days, all the way back to all the and Peter, of course, can correspond to this, all the biblical implications were not with just ETs who may or may not have our best interests at heart. I believe that the more complicated spacecraft, the big triangles, the ones that are city blocks wide and hundreds of feet high, these are the extraterrestrial, these are the ultra-terrestrial craft that dwarf what we commonly see as the regular extraterrestrial craft. Now, the question is, how do we differentiate? And that can only be established by the individual or the contactee, per se, that has had the contact and that is aware and cognizant enough to share that experience in a contemporary, intelligent setting. Now, Peter, I think you were dealing with extraterrestrials, not ultra-terrestrials.
I've dealt with them all.
Yes, but I'm the confusion that you were left with, you know, and the subsequent trauma, and I'm not saying you're severely traumatized, but
oh, no.
you've admitted to me that it has left you with a lot more questions that have never been answered. Okay.
Yeah, and you know, eventually we'll find the answers out. But when that was the negative ETs that I've been in contact with, and certainly the ones that have tried to end my life 16 times. But on the converse side, you know, I have to look at the contact that I had when I was in a coma, and an entity came to me and said, "Hey, come with me," and took me to see the birth of my youngest child. There's the blue orb that instantly appeared out of nowhere that stopped a deer from coming through the windshield of my car, which would have been certain death for both me and my son. When we impacted that, we had to be doing close to 60 miles an hour. I just set the cruise control for 63. So,
I got it.
You see things like that, you know, plus all the... something that I did, which I don't talk about that often, but here's part of seeing a negative timeline. I got a lot of answers when I took a class that was developed by Jose Silva. I can't tell you exactly when he developed it, but I took the class in 1970.
Thank you, Ira.
1978. And
Michael, you got the video. I'm sorry, Pete.
Listen, guys.
You have the video up, Michael.
Let me address the listeners real quick. I've got the video up on screen here. I want everyone to take a good look at this. I'm going to play it a few times while the guys are talking. And then I wouldn't mind in the last hour if people let us know what you think, whether in chat or whatever. But go ahead.
Well, I'd taken this class, and it was the greatest class I had ever taken. It was based on the work of Edgar Cayce, but they broke it down scientifically so they could repeat the work and teach the class. And this really taught interdimensional thinking. Of course, back then they didn't know that we lived in a multiverse, but the rules still applied, that you could receive any information anywhere within the universe or anywhere within existence where life existed itself. Now they say anywhere within any dimension, which is interesting. They've changed the wording, just the verbiage just a little bit. I did get the updated tapes, or CDs actually, but this opened up a whole new realm of how to use our consciousness, and explained why I was able to see future events, because that's one of the things that we can do in Theta. Now, part of the class, I believe it was in the 303 section, they gave you guides, spiritual guides. You went down to level, and they programmed it, and you were supposed to get spiritual guides. And I didn't get any spiritual guides. It's the only one in the class that didn't get any spiritual guides for me. So, after the exercise was over and people were giving their experiences, I talked to the teacher, and I said, hey, I didn't get any. And he said, well, okay, we're going to do this again. And when we do it again after the break, pick two, anybody that you want. The past, present, future, doesn't make any difference. So I was like, okay, wait a minute. I've got to pick two entities. And I did. I believe I picked Pocahontas and Geronimo. Anyway, and so they were my spiritual guides throughout the rest of the class. But I thought, why should I go? Who are these spiritual guides that are giving me information? And these were actual entities. The entity of Pocahontas and Geronimo. And I'm like, okay, and I was supposed to ask them questions that I was looking for answers to. And that didn't totally fit with everything that I had learned from the scriptures, because now I was putting additional life forms of who I just gave names to. I didn't get a set originally. I had to go look for a set or invent a set.
All right, guys, we've got to take a break here. So, Peter, if you could find a stopping point there in a minute.
Absolutely. My point is this, is that thousands and thousands of people have taken this class and certainly have gone on to bigger and better things. But we have to be careful of who we have contact with. I've had contact on both sides, and it's the good side that's keeping me alive. Other people have seen my guardian angel as well. So this is the distinction that we have to use extreme caution with as we go forward. Anyway, time for a break, folks. Thanks for listening.
All right, great. Yeah, let's take that break, and then when I come back, I'll go ahead and I'll play that video one more time.
Michael, let me throw this in. You the one thing you do is you challenge your guests. You know what? If they're full of bull, you call them out for it, and I appreciate that about you. Because Art used to do the same thing. He called plenty of people out. Says, you're full of BS, and you're done.
Well, yeah, exactly. And listen, what I do is I've got with my show. I mean, I give people, they've got so much more access to guests and to me and all that than probably anywhere else. I mean, I'll let you come on and you could disagree, but I mean, if I'm a guest on your show and you've got people calling in, screaming, yelling at me, you're a liar, you're a fraud, you're this and that, and you're just letting them do that and like totally over talk.
But that's baseless, Michael. That's baseless. You call people out.
Well, right, exactly. So, I mean, it comes to a point where I've got friends who have called in, who I've had to cut them off just because, they're going a little too far with the guy. It's like, hey, if you want to chew out the guest, you could do that. They go contact them and send them an email or whatever you want. But, if you want to disagree with them, well, fine. But if you want to have a fight with them, do that somewhere else. That's the way I see it.
Michael sounds like all the liberal leftists, man. They don't have a leg to stand on. They'll try and use any kind of verbiage just to create havoc because they have nothing against our independent president. Not a lefty, not a righty. He's a businessman who saw what was going on. He says, I have had enough. And that's what it comes down to. I've had enough. This country's going down the toilet because the New World Order has infiltrated itself at every level of the government. And that's what he's doing now. He's vetting them all out, my friend. And if he can survive this, and I hope he does, because I've got his back, it's going to be over for these pedophilic, sociopathic, narcissistic maniacs.
I absolutely agree. Dr. Rand, I'm being told that, and you are, I hear it too, but I'm being told that you are very low. If
Yes.
You are, Jason. You are low. I'm having a hard
Robert,
time hearing you as well.
Robert, something I just
don't
posted tonight.
that. I don't understand that. I've got my volume all the way up.
you sound like you're in the other room talking.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and switch out my headset. I'll do it on the next break.
Okay.
All right.
Should
I talk? What if I talk louder?
Yes. Yell at us.
Yes, Jason.
That work? All right. Well, I'll shout a little bit. Well, while I've got the calm here, I want to jump into the political arena because I'm getting really pissed off. Okay. I had.
That's right. Yell at us.
I had a dear friend of mine who happens to be black, who I've shared a dozen dinners and lunches, and we've talked about politics and religion, and she's extremely intelligent. I'm not going to give any names.
Uh-oh.
She's a former union negotiator at the highest level. And I've always known that she had a left bent, which is fine. It's fine. Everyone's entitled to be who they are, what they are, when they are, and why they are. I mean, that's what the free spirit of being a human is all about. Well, about 2 weeks ago, well, let me backtrack a second. Since the election, and when the Trumpster won, I figured it wasn't a good idea if I called her right away because I didn't want her to be upset. I mean, you know, we talked about the election, and I knew she was a Hillary fan, and she knew I was a Trump fan. So I didn't call for the first 2-3 weeks. So then I didn't hear from her at all, so I ventured a call. I bet I called 6, 7, 8 times. I left messages. Polite.
Yeah.
I said, please, let's get together. Nothing.
Snowflakes.
About 10 days ago, middle of the day, I get a phone call from my dear friend. And she starts out nearly hysterical. How could I have voted for the monster that's now in the White House? And she started going on and on and on, and I thought to myself, dear Lord, what have you done to my friend? So I let her go, guys. I figured if I try to jump in.
You should have gave her my number. I would have loved to have laughed with her.
Michael, Jason, I got the same exact thing from dear close friends. As soon as Trump, I'm telling you, one night here at the house, very close friends of our family, we had a discussion. I tried to explain to her that it's got nothing to do with Trump. He's an independent. He just had to run on the Republican ticket. It was like I watched. It was like watching The Exorcist. Okay, with that, but Peter, you can understand this. The moment I tried to explain to both of them, okay, that Trump understands exactly what's going on. He knows what the Federal Reserve is, how we've been manipulated, how we've been lied to about everything. And as I brought the talking points out, I thought she was going to spew green peas out of her mouth. They immediately both got, and we're still friends, mind you. Just remember that we're still friends because I've been able to weave the family, been able to keep the connection and contact. And we, as a matter of fact, they were here last night, and everything's really smoothed over. But it was like a vicious, vile attack with no talking points. They had nothing to talk about except the same rhetoric that's been spewed out over MSNBC, CNN, the Clown News Network, CNBC.
And they're getting so mad
all of them.
from being called fake news. It's getting so under their skin because they know it's true. And it's just...
But Michael, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible.
I don't miss any of the people like that. Believe me, I've lost some too. I've even lost some guests. You know what? I didn't lose them. They lost me. But piss on them. If they want the country to fall apart, I don't want them anywhere around me. I don't care how much I liked them at one time. And believe me, I don't miss those people. It's their loss. They're the idiots.
I haven't lost anybody over this whole thing with the election or the Trump.
Well, you're lucky, Peter. You're lucky.
Well, the interesting.
Well, Peter's too likable. That's why.
My kingdom's not part of this world, so I can throw stones in both parts if I want.
May I interject this one thing, Peter?
Well,
There's
hold on,
one thing that.
Before you do, I just want to support you on this one thing, because what you had said earlier, just before we went on the air, the last post I made on Facebook was this, and I'll read it. Why are the globalists freaking out over Trump? Keep in mind that Trump is a businessman and has been most of his life. Two things about businessmen: they hate losing money and they dictate. Almost $20 trillion in debt caused by self-centered, backstabbing politicians who start the lies the sheep will believe. Trump is not going to ask, he is going to tell, and he has the military behind him. So
I couldn't have said it better myself, Peter. Couldn't have said it better myself. The only thing I was going to interject was this, that, and Michael, this is for you, and I don't know how you'll take it, but I'm going to just put it out there, that Christ said, and I don't follow this line of thought, Peter. I know you do, but I don't. But Christ said, you know what? If the thief wants to steal your clothes that badly, let him have it, because he probably needs it more than you do. And the idea behind that is that they're so lost, they're so out of place within themselves that they don't know how to react to kindness, love, caring, and kindness. So you have to even give it more to them because they're so lost.
You brought up an interesting point, if I just might.
And then let's get back to Planet X, guys.
Sure. The whole scriptures, the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is 6,000 years of alien intervention or ET intervention in human affairs. And that's something that the church is never going to teach you. It's never going to tell you that. And they're never going to tell you the implications of the kingdom. There is a satanic kingdom ruling now. The kingdom coming, the return of Christ, is tied in with the Planet X event, the Nibiru event, and we can deduce that by there's 6 prophecies within the Bible all dealing with the same thing. So once we realize that the scriptures are future events foretold by alien or extraterrestrial life forms given to humans, as a matter of fact, Revelation was given from Jesus to John, and we're in a interdimensional war soon to come to Earth. That's when we'll start to get the total concept of the scriptures. You see, it talks about all these different entities.
It does. Michael, just before we went to break, you wanted to ask everybody what he thought about the video.
Man, I forgot. Look, I forgot about it. And here it is again, everyone. Watch this video, and I want to know what people think, and then I'll tell you what I think.
Let me go right back to both Peter and Robert here.
All right, yell at us, Dr. Rand.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'll have to correct that. Okay, look. The book of Revelation did come from Jesus, but it came through an angelic presence that met with the Apostle John on Patmos. Now, do we not assume that in the Lord's domain he can have angels in any form or shape that he so desires? And would they not be considered extraterrestrial in nature? If they're not from here, where are they from?
I've been raising that question for a long time, Doctor.
What's that, sir?
I said I've been raising that question for a long time because we go right back to Genesis, and we've got a Genesis chapter 2. There's a record of genetic engineering. So who were the genetic engineers?
Uh-huh.
You see? And there's, as you go through the scriptures, there's different life forms that are talked about, and even though it's not part of the general biblical canon, you go and look at what's written in the book of Enoch, and it's like, holy smokes, really? And you're dealing with life forms that are energy life forms that can shapeshift from energy or the form of fire into a human, and then back to the form of fire at will. So what are these things?
It's a shame, Peter, that modern day religion, and this is not a knock on Christian theology. It's more of a statement on the present day. I'm trying to say it. I don't want to insult or hurt anyone of a religious indoctrination. But the point is, they have got to get past the same basic message week after week after week from the pulpit. People understand the Bible. They understand it more so than you would believe. It's just like my little
yeah, but they stand.
People that came out, they understood what was going on with this election.
Doctor, they understand it based on religious dogma and doctrine. They don't understand it based on science.
Peter, not doctrine, indoctrination. This is the problem.
Well, there you go.
It's indoctrination. They only follow the action. They take it as literal, and they're not looking at the larger overview point of what it actually means. And another point I want to bring up is why have so many things left out of the Bible, like reincarnation. And Michael, I think I sent you a message the other night to one of your guests in regards to this reincarnation. I think it was Trad Cat Knight, which I do follow, by the way, because I think he's a brilliant researcher. But they close themselves off. They close themselves off in their thought process, and they say, well, no, I only follow a traditional viewpoint. And if you open your thought process up, you can grab a larger picture of maybe what's going on.
We had about over 23,000 on YouTube for that one, so that was interesting. And now listen, I watched that video. Everybody's been able to see it if you've been watching the broadcast. And for me, I found it really interesting up until there was a point where it just disappears. And the sun was still there. And for that, I'm thinking it's some kind of sun devil.
Okay. And I will say this to that, Michael, is that what happens is because we on planet Earth are on a sphere, we are looking through a fisheye lens. As a fisheye lens, its apparatus, let's say it opens, and the sky gets brighter, and something is very far away, it's going to get, blended back out into the background. And the other part of that is this. Why would it only happen in certain parts of the year? This is taking place between March and April. If that were the case, Michael, if it's an anomaly, it should be happening all the time.
Well, it happens.
It would happen all the time.
It would happen when the clouds were just right, I think, when
but there were no clouds, Michael.
But actually, there wasn't. It wasn't thick cloud, but you could see, like, as the video went afterwards, you could see them kind of surrounding the sun. I don't know if you want to call it cloud or moisture or whatever the heck it was, but I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. And
Gotcha,
You know,
gotcha. There's another video out there that was captured by somebody else by the same cam, by the way. And you can go to Nibiru Daily, and I think it's still on there. I'm not sure. But it was a capture from, I think, within the same month or 2 months, where you actually see the same sun rising. But here's the difference, Michael.
Hey, mods, do a poll in the chat. Somebody do a poll, and one of the mods set up a poll for this, what this was, and let's see what the listeners think. I
agree. But the only other point I want to bring up on this, Michael, is that in this other video that was captured by another individual who is researching the same thing, there are clouds in the background. Now, the second sun comes up. Now, here's the funny thing. The clouds pass in front of the second sun. They pass in front of the second sun, which means it's a real object. The only thing I have not done, Michael, is to do a luminancy test, basically to see if the brightness of this second sun or part of the second sun, satellites, creates the luminosity which matches our sun, which would say, you know what, that's something that's definitely there, and it's bright as heck. And here's another point I want to bring up. There's the slew sky survey team, which are basically astronomers. And if you guys remember, I don't know if you remember this, but the head of slew, I think he's Australian, said, he just brought it up nonchalantly when they were looking at the Venus crossing the sun, and there's a second glowing object right next to the sun. He says, "Oh, hey, by the way, if you didn't know, we do have a second sun," and kind of left it at that, and everybody went nuts. Like, are you kidding me? There's a second sun? And then he just kind of went dark on it and said, "Hey, I can't talk about it anymore, but I said what I said." So,
here's
Michael,
what I've noticed over the. Go ahead, Doctor.
I want to ask Michael, did George Norrie bring anything up about Planet X, or is he silent on that now?
No, I asked George Norrie about his thoughts on Planet X, and he believes that there is something real out there.
I was going to add to this. I've seen several years ago, you'd see pictures of what was supposed to be Planet X, and they were easily debunked. But I've seen more and more pictures here lately, which I look at, and videos that it's like, yeah, okay, wait a minute. There's something I can't quite explain here. We don't have clouds in the way. I can't say, oh, yeah, there's a sundog there, or whatever you want to refer to it as. And I do know that the atmosphere will bend light, and clouds will transmit light. Water transmits light. So you're going to have a cloud that will transmit light, and it'll look like two suns, coming up, and that's all basically an optical illusion. But however, I can't explain the other things that are happening on not just this planet, but the things that are happening on the other planets throughout the solar system.
Absolutely, Peter.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what's causing this? What's causing this? And so you look at the circumstantial evidence. Even though we don't have access to the telescopes that know exactly where this thing is and is tracking it, we've got the circumstantial evidence. We've got the historical record, because it's believed that the last time this came by was during the Exodus. At least that's what would it be indicated by the Coburn Bible and other historical accounts. And guess what? They lived through that. But there was also ETs involved in that situation too.
But Peter, even more so, Malachi Martin didn't come out directly and say it on Art Bell's show. Which, Michael, I wish you would have took that opportunity, because you'd been sitting in Art Bell's position right now if if you wanted to go that way, but I understand your position.
Oh, no, I'd be glad to go on all these stations and stuff. It's just I'm going to be me, and I'm going to do what I've always done. That's all. It's
Oh,
it's,
yeah. No,
What you
absolutely.
find with people though is when you're controlled. You're controlled when you don't do what they want you to do. Then all of a sudden you're
Without
controlled.
a question.
But go ahead.
Without a question, Michael. But here's the thing. Malachi Martin talked about this. He didn't say it directly, but he did say it indirectly. The Vatican is looking for something in the sky, and you know what? He was killed for it anyway. My supposition on that, but also there are multiple things. And Peter, you should agree with me. The third secret of Fatima. That's exactly what this is all about.
Revelation in 6:12 through 17 starts off with it's the blowing. What do you think? No, it starts off with a great trumpet. I mean, with a great earthquake, and then John
what have
says,
we heard, Peter? Before you go any further, what have we heard all across the planet? These bizarre noises, trumpets. Yeah. They've been described as trumpets, and it's not just in one place. It's across the whole planet: Canada, Romania, Slovakia, Russia, the United States. It's been worldwide.
Yeah, it has.
Heard them all, actually, but the scripture that I was referring to, it starts off with a great earthquake. And John says that the sun was turned to black as sackcloth of hair. The moon was turned to blood. He said that the stars fell from heaven like the way that young fig trees or unripe figs are blown off of a tree in a high wind. He said that the heavens would be rolled up like the scroll. So something is going to be blocking our view.
Maybe it's chemtrails.
No, that's actually...
And have you noticed, by the way, gentlemen, that they used to be spraying the skies completely? All I am seeing, and I live in Phoenix, and I've watched for the last 2 months, spraying from sunup to sunrise in front of the sun, not over to the north or east or west.
Doing it at night too.
The sun.
They do it at night too.
In front of the sun, Michael.
Yeah, well, they're doing it at night too, around the moon, and I see it. But go ahead.
Revelation 11, 8:11 says, "And the third of the sun, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars will not give their light." When we go back to Revelation 6, it continues that the island groups and the mountains shall be removed. And then it talks, John sees this. He says, the kings, the mighty men, the military commanders, and essentially all of their staff, cry out to the mountains and the rock masses and say, cover us over. But it goes on and says, who can hide from the Lamb and the one seated upon the judgment of the Lamb and the one seated upon the throne? So the Nibiru event is tied in with the end of this system of evil. What the elite have, or what we consider those who consider themselves the elite, they all have a ticket to their underground bunkers, to wherever they're going, underground cities. And when you start to research this, it's like, okay, well, that's where the trillions of dollars disappear to, that and the secret space program. And they're expecting to live through this.
You know what?
They leave the rest of us up on top to die.
I think that if they have any brains at all, then they would give those bunkers up to people who they want to serve their agenda, yet have them think they're going to survive. And these elites would be heading off planet to survive, because if this happens, if this is real and it does happen, then I wouldn't want to be under the ground in none of them tin cans. But
I'd rather be right up on top of the ground. You know, it's in an earthquake. It's not the earthquake that kills you; it's the building falling down on you that kills you.
Yeah, go ahead, Doctor.
Right, Doctor.
I'd like to jump in if I can.
You got to yell at us.
I'd like to take a commercial break here and put a plug in for
okay.
Everything that we're discussing tonight. Everything is covered in the Return of Planet X. And it's interesting that we are now discussing topics that certainly need to be discussed. But if I could steer our listeners, and by the way, Michael...
Well, we got to take this break now if we're going to take it.
All right. Since my last show with you, I've sold over 300 100 books on Amazon, and I thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Dr. Rand.
Thank you.
Well,
Absolutely,
It's all
congratulations.
coming. It's all coming out, ladies and gentlemen.
all right.
And it's in the book, The Return of Planet X. Just half price. Go get it.
All right, hang on, guys. Let's take this break. It'll be a quick one, about 4 minutes. So, Dr. Rand, how you sounding now?
Well, I don't know. I
There you are.
is it back? Is it back?
You are
Oh,
back.
you're great.
I
Yes.
got an echo, but I don't mind. I'm used to radio and television, so I got a little echo here, but I like it.
Well, we're not hearing the echo, but we are hearing you, and that's great.
All right. All right. Look,
I caught the echo
wanna
to start
ask-
with, but it's good now. Go ahead, Doctor.
Good. I appreciate that. I want to ask you guys a key question. What is it that you think is driving your individual ambitions to stay with these topics, even though they might not be politically or PC correct? What is it that's driving each one of you? I'm pretty sure I know from my own inner consciousness that I have to stay with what I know is real for me.
Well, I could give you a quick answer for me, and that is every time I start to wave my hand at it and push it a little further away, some new news story comes out like, hey, in 2022, 2 stars are going to collide in deep space, and you're going to see a new star in the sky. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about Planet X again. But that's me. Real simple. Robert?
Absolutely. I think what Jason is asking.
Who's setting the Morse code? I just heard Morse code.
I heard the
just
same
tried
thing,
pumping up
Michael.
my
I heard the
volume.
same. I heard the same thing.
I just tried pumping up the volume. Did it get any better?
No, you sound good to me, Jason.
All right. That was me, guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyway, what you were asking is what's driving us. From my perspective, Jason, it's a transition into a new level of consciousness and existence. That's the bottom line. I mean, that's the overall supposition of what you're asking. Yes, we're all looking for the next level of consciousness. It takes this level of transition to bring us there, kicking and screaming for some and open arms for others. And I'm probably somewhere in the mix of in between there. I think that's exactly what it is for me.
All right, and then Peter, and then I've got to get to some questions that listeners send me. Otherwise, they're going to get angry and never send me questions for you guys no more.
Michael, they love you, and they will always send you questions because of what you do.
Peter?
The driving thing for me is following biblical prophecy and seeing how it applies to the earth and teaching people what's going on.
And I knew that.
The scriptures don't end at this Armageddon. That's just and the world doesn't stop. It goes on, and so does life. And it says, well, in Revelation 7, I think it's verse 9, it says that there was a great crowd from every nation, tongue, and tribe from around the world that no man could number that survives this. However, the majority is not. You know, a great crowd of 7 billion people going on 8 billion people is 10% is still a lot of people. But still, life will go on, and it's up to us to make the right choices in this. And we're running out of prophecies.
Well, speaking of prophecies,
that's where we're at.
Peter, I've got a question here from Cybergun, and he says, if there are multiple timelines, then how will prophecy be fulfilled?
Oh, well, you see, the one timeline is going to come to an end. We all have free will, so we can choose to do whatever we want. We can choose to ignore the truth, or we could choose to examine the truth. And once if we choose to ignore the truth, then we go on our merry lives, and we're on that broad, spacious timeline until, guess what? It's a Nibiru event, and we don't have any food, we don't have any water, and we live in the 50th floor of a high-rise building in New York City on the east side. All the money that you have and all the good things that you thought you were saving up for are now over, and you got to walk up and down the stairs just to get to your apartment where the water doesn't run.
Hey, Peter, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah, and so so if you ignore that, then you ignore the future. If you pay attention and look and listen to what we're talking about and follow the scripture, this is the first time that I'm really concerned about a Planet X. I wasn't concerned about Ison. I wasn't concerned about Ellen, and the timelines just weren't there, if you want to talk about that, to create some devastation. But there's still a few prophecies that need to be fulfilled. And we're seeing parts of this under the Trump administration where all of a sudden, wait a minute, Hillary didn't get elected. That means that the paradigm has changed here. The globalists are no longer in charge. Now, is this stuff going to be exposed? And you see, understanding that there's still prophecies that have to happen, which we're going to see the rise of what is called an eighth king, or what will appear to be a world power, probably through an economic turnover. But all these things have been put into place, and understanding them from a scientific viewpoint cleans all that religious dogma and doctrine and indoctrination out. It allows us to think for ourselves, and then we can use our minds to create the future that we want, because getting through this depends on one thing: getting out of that beta fight or flight and getting into alpha, where love exists. And that's where the greatest commandment comes in.
And so then the prophecy will, so then having multiple timelines won't affect the prophecy.
No, not at all, because what we deemed as the catastrophic timeline comes to an end. You see, what happened, Nibiru is like one big filter, and turn the lights off and everybody gets to play in the dark until there's nobody left to play in the dark.
All right.
Except for those people who got out of the city, basically, excuse me, or who have prepared, knowing that this event is coming.
All right, and let's give a question here for Dr. Rand. This one comes from CR. I'm just gonna. There's not too many of them, guys, so I'm just gonna blast through a few of them here. Dr. Rand, why last? And of course, another one just came on top of it. All right. Why last week was the moon covered orb? I don't know what orb means. Eclipse from top to bottom instead of side to side. I don't know. Take it as it is. So the moon was eclipsed from top to bottom instead of side to side. Do you know anything about that, Dr. Rand?
I'm a little confused, and no disrespect to the questioner. I'm a little confused by the question.
May I interject?
Yes, go ahead.
It appears that the Earth has developed a pretty good wobble, and as the Earth rotates, it's not the moon that's shifted. And this is something I've reported for several months. It's our perspective. Yeah, right. The moon is still waxing and waning the same way. But I noticed this severely when the night that we left to come back down off the grid, back on the grid, I should say, when we left the mountain. The moon was waxing from left to right, evenly across from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. By the time we got down to the Boston area, as we were coming back down, we got down to Massachusetts, I was noticing that the shadow of the moon was now, or the way that it was waxing, was from like 10 to 11 o'clock down toward 5, 6 o'clock. And that caught my eye, and I was like, okay, why is this going on? Why am I seeing this? And so I've been paying attention to this, and yeah, Earth evidently developed a wobble. I just posted a video on this day before yesterday.
All right.
Well, may I give my own point of view on that, Michael?
Sure,
if I may, on that
sure.
question?
Let me just say that I haven't noticed anything out of the ordinary, so I'm missing it over here. I've got, but go ahead.
Well, Michael, this has happened on more than one occasion, and the person who asked that question is a very legitimate question, because this came back. This happened to me when I was on the radio back in 2012, where the basically, I think what your listener is asking is the top of the moon was basically sheared off by a shadow.
Yeah,
and I had never seen that before either. And basically,
I don't know if I've ever seen it. Go ahead.
Oh, basically my thought process is this: that if and I absolutely believe this, that the Planet X system, the brown dwarf and its satellites are, within our solar system, being Nibiru the closest now between Jupiter and Mars, is large enough to overshadow our moon. It would cause that sheer crescent from the north to the south. In other words, the north would be cut off of the moon. The south would be shining. I've seen that on several occasions, and that's my best supposition on that.
Robert, that is very logical.
I'll go with that one. With that.
Yeah, the panel says yes, it's a winner.
Survey says ding. All
Survey says.
Yeah, that would also indicate that if that was the case, wouldn't this planet need to be between the sun and the moon in order to break that?
Absolutely, Peter, and that's what will create that. That's what will create that. And I've seen it on 3 occasions. The last one only being about 4 weeks ago. I noticed this, and I'm not sure if your questioner had saw that about 4 weeks ago. Maybe he saw it further back, but yes, that's my theory.
Okay,
anyway.
let me give you another one, Peter, and let's try to give. I mean, let's give the answers, but let's not go too deep, because I want to try to get through some of these questions. And if you guys are up to it, we could do an extra 30.
Sure.
I'm up for it, Michael.
All right, so that'll give us some time here. Michael, tell your guests living off the grid is easy. It all depends on climate. I live off the grid, and the only pay bills we get is our phones and our internet. They said they have very large water tanks.
There you go.
All right. Mike.
The one thing that I might add to that, and I've said this before, I have never felt so free as I did when we were off the grid. Seriously. And it definitely, I've gotten healthier being off the grid, being back on the grid, making me more stir crazy than anything else. But I feel my body actually degenerating now. I can't wait to get back and get physical exercise again.
Well, then we got the same question again here, I think. Why was the moon eclipsed from top to bottom? So we covered that. Let's see. Dr. Rand is low. Next one. Barbara Lamb was on the elevator just now. When are you? Oh, okay. See, folks, give me questions for the guest. Anything else is going to have to go to email, because this is why. I mean, it just takes up time from the show, and it makes me not want to even get into questions. So let's see. I'll try one more here. This one's from Jesse. Ask the panel if we are having a collective ascension, and if it has anything to do with our DNA changing as the Schumann frequencies change. For example, how cymatics work.
Well, Peter, I think that one's for you, brother.
I'm trying to give you guys these questions, but I mean, I'm getting all kinds of other stuff mixed in with it. It's not even worth it.
There's an ascension happening, but it's not as people think. It's not like we're going to be raptured off the planet, taken to another location. That goes totally against the prime directive for planet Earth. Most people don't understand there is a prime directive. And where that ascension takes place is within our own minds and hearts, and it goes right back to the greatest commandment. And here's why. We can scientifically prove this. The greatest commandment states, as Jesus put it, you must love Yahweh your God with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and you must love your neighbor as you do yourself. Now, just the state of love takes us out of that beta fight and flight. So there is no more being afraid, and there is no running away from anything. once you are connected. Now, the basic principles here is to love the creator, not some god wannabe from a different planet or a star system, but the creator of the entire multiverse, the soul of the cosmos itself, the dynamic energy that makes this one living organism in which we live. That is the power which we can connect to through prayer. And then we can take that power and through meditation create our futures. And when we have accurate knowledge, we know how to create our futures, because we have a dynamically fantastic future. But it depends on us making the transformation. We have to be the ones to choose whether we are going to support the satanic system of evil, whether it's politically or in its deepest realms of the occult things that we don't want to know about, or if we are going to be on the side of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords and be in that dynamic change of peace. We're going to get the advanced technologies. We're going to get the clean energy. We're going to learn to live in harmony with nature. Instead of destroying the earth, there's the technology to repair and fix the earth, but not just that, repair and fix our DNA. Get rid of the telomeres and reconnect.
Peter, can I add something to that?
Yeah,
is
sure.
that we've had that technology all along. It's been hindered by, the deep state. That technology has been around for 70 years. The problem is we're having to fight a dark force in order to get to the technology that it has been in existence for that long. So now the whole fight that our president, and when I mean our president, I mean my president, your president, everybody's president, who's awake and aware to everything that's going on and everything that's being played in the background right now to get to that source of energy, information, and technology that will basically eliminate the deep state, the dark technology that will come to light for all of us. So reality is, this is the grand time of awakening, and unfortunately, and I think this has happened successively through the millennia of each transition of evolution of the physical and higher consciousness state. It seems like, guys, that we are always in a state of it's a planet of graduation. We always come back to the planet where we transfer from first grade to second grade to third grade. Some of us are left behind to repeat the classes, and some of us graduate to the next level. It just absolutely seems that way to me from everything that I've been observing and consciously, filtrating through my process of observation.
Well, you are correct in what you're saying there, Robert. And here's, most people, as I say, they never make it past this war of Armageddon. Oh, it's the end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of this system. It's the end of this corrupt world system, which has kept this technology hidden. The same people that are in charge of this world system are sacrificing our children to demonic entities, to these fallen angels, the part of the satanic rebellion, and they're the ones that are hiding this technology from us, that suppress the technology and suppress the truth. This is what is going to be done away with. Then those technologies will be allowed to flourish. But it's not just that, because the whole regime will change. We'll be under a positive energy force. We'll be under positive ET guidance, and they have the technology that is far beyond what we already know about here that's being suppressed. So there'll be new things. Now, what you said about the evolution, we have been in a de-evolution for the past 6,000 years, according to what Scripture says, and that is going to be reversed at this time. So yes, we are going to be on an evolution, and when we go back to Revelation, or go ahead to Revelation, I should say, Revelation, the 21st chapter, that evolution is clearly stated there. It says that pain, sorrow, outcry, those will all be things of the past, including death will be a thing of the past. Once we have our DNA restored, there won't be death. Oh, well, the earth's going to be overcrowded. No, it's not, because you don't know the next step. In the beginning, God created the earth. There are billions of Earth-like planets scattered from one end of the universe to the other, just waiting for humans to inhabit them. That is our next step. Arthur C. Clarke had insight to this.
Peter, does this coincide to the 1,000 years of peace and enlightenment once the Lord comes back?
This is what happens at the end. These are the unopened scriptures. These are the unopened scrolls that will be opened at this time. I got to see a glimpse of what's ahead, and it's totally congruent. If we had more time, I could go into greater detail to explain it. But as I said, Arthur C. Clarke had an insight to this in the movies 2001 and 2010, when David Bowman becomes the Star Child.
He was an insider.
Well, he invented the first telecommunications satellite. The man was a genius.
He was an insider.
And guys, here's a couple more questions for you, and here's how it's gonna go, folks. From now on, private messaging to me, Michael Vera, in my chat room at latenightinthe-midlands.com. If you private message me, it needs to be a question to the guest, not "Hello, Mr. Vera, how are you?" or any of that. That all goes email, latenightinthe-midlands at yahoo.com or mv@latenightinthe-midlands.com. Not trying to be rude, but that's how I get my questions from the chat. So, and I don't want to be weeding through stuff. That's why I do a private message. So if you start trying to just hold a conversation with me in private chat, I'm going to silence you. Now you know.
Next question.
Yeah.
Next question.
Wife just asked me about the third currency reset. I have been telling her it's coming. Can Dr. Rand and or Peter explain? I don't know. Explain it. It's all broke up after that. But can you explain?
Are you referring to the coming anticipated scenario where they're going to phase out physical currency and go with electronic currency?
I don't know, but you got low again.
That's part of it, Doctor. That is part of it. What they're asking about is the elimination of the dollar as the world's currency, which will cause the collapse of the debt system. And I believe probably what they're referring to is when they do roll out, and this is basically waiting in the wings from what I understand. They'll be rolling out plastic currency, and it'll be a worldwide currency. This may be the fulfillment of the image of the wild beast in Revelation 13, where you can neither buy nor sell unless you have the mark. And the three people on this planet that can pull this off successfully are President Putin, President Xi, and President Trump. So you've got the three powers that are aligned, that Trump knows everything that we've talked about on this radio show for the last 10 years. You know, come on now. Every time he got lambasted, it was because he said something that we've talked about on this radio show in the past. And you know, throughout his campaign. He knows all about 9/11. As he said, he had friends that died there, and he was pretty angry with the Bush family for some reason.
Yeah, but people are actually listening now. We've been saying this stuff, Peter, and it was like banging our head against the wall. And now, finally, the spell is broken.
That's why, you know, Katie was telling me about book sale. I'm selling about a book an hour now. And that's why Dr. Rand is seeing an increase in his sales. People, the things that we have been talking about, all of a sudden are becoming not common knowledge, but people are becoming aware of it, and they're becoming, you know, it's funny. You go and you look at Letters to Earth, The Future is Yours, and next to that you see Matthew Stein's book. You know, when you go down and see the other books that people buy together, they buy Letters to Earth, Matthew Stein's book, When Technology Fails, and the Bible. Oh, and there's a book on Planet X, but Doctor, it's not yours. Unfortunately, it's somebody else's. But there's a book on Planet X there too. There's 4 books that are grouped together. So,
Peter, may I throw in a caveat, Michael, as well? I mean,
sure.
The question is very prevalent and deep. What the listener is asking, but if you think about this, they indoctrinated us with that system a long, long time ago. Michael, Peter, Dr. Rand, and myself, how many pieces of plastic do you have in your wallet they can use to purchase any item that you need to purchase? I'm sure that any four of us can say, I have at least two.
I have one.
That indoctrination system, Michael, came in back in the 1970s, Visa, MasterCard, and it's just become more. Yes.
I do 90. No, I do 100. I've done 100% of the transactions that I have done since I've been on the grid, using either plastic or the computer.
Absolutely.
I had $3. I had 5 singles in my wallet when I returned off the grid. They remained in my wallet until I gave them to my son last week.
Exactly, and that's the point that I was getting to, is that we've all been indoctrinated into that system of eliminating cash from the process. Now, their end goal is simply this: that if they can indoctrinate us completely into a digital world, that means that the silver and gold, which is actual physical money, it is money. Every piece of paper and plastic that everyone holds, including myself, that is a transfer of currency. It's not money. Money, actual money, is silver and gold. It always has been. Yeah. And repeatedly throughout history, it has always returned to silver and gold. They have just tried to indoctrinate us into the system that, hey, believe and have faith that this plastic and this paper, currency that we create, or these digital non-existent currencies, are actual physical cash.
Well, yeah, it's almost a cashless.
Back to the same thing, Michael.
It's almost a cashless society now. I said this 5 years ago. I said, you stand in line at a store and be 8th or 9th in line and watch everybody. And the only one that puts actual cash on the counter is the little kid who wants to buy the Starburst.
But Michael, I still use cash. I still use cash when I can.
And now,
so do
I would recommend, and something that I've endorsed for a very long time, you have a few dollars saved up at the end of the week or the end of the month, whatever it is, convert it into silver. If you live in the United States, get yourself an American Silver Eagle minted by the U.S. Treasury Department. You can get them from coin deals, or you can get them directly from the Treasury Department. You're going to pay a premium for them. They're 0.999% pure silver. They look just like a silver dollar, and guess what? They are a silver dollar. And if we go to a cashless society, that is money there. That is real money that you will have.
We pretty much have. You bring up suspicion when you go and you start doing things by cash, especially in large amounts. So we have a
Michael, I've been questioned on that.
Oh, I was too.
Deposits.
When I had my landscape and construction business, I remember I went in to take, I think it was about $4,000 I was taking out at one shot, and it was like I came in there with a gun. It's like I had to explain to them what I was doing. I said, it's none of your damn business what I'm doing.
Sign that form, sign this other form.
Yeah.
And, dotted here.
And we'll see if we can approve it. I'm like, you want to see me come in here with a gun? Tell me I can't have my money.
Michael, Peter, when I was in Texas buying equipment, when I had my restaurant equipment company, okay, and I was banking with Chase at that time, the biggest criminal organization on the planet, by the way, run by Jamie Dimon. When I went to Chase, it was a smaller banking institution, but it's still a Chase bank. And I said, I need $10,000 in cash because I'm going to be purchasing some equipment. They looked at me like I had a third eye in my head because they didn't have the cash on hand. I had to wait 2 days for them to get physical cash in their bank.
Oh, I believe it.
I could actually purchase.
I absolutely believe it.
I was given a check many years ago, and I went to the bank that check was drawn on, and I said, give me my money. And they said, we don't have it. You'll have to come back. And
right, we'll give you a check. You can use it on your credit card, Peter, but to have the physical cash, that's a no-no. Remember the video that went viral of the guy who tried to pay his mortgage at B of A in cash, and they treated him like a criminal? You guys all remember that video that went viral?
I remember hearing about it. I don't remember watching it or anything, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Here's a question from Omar, and I think that's the last one we have for right now. Where does the 14.5 atmospheric pressure come from? I don't know what.
Oh, I can answer that one.
Everything over the top of us.
Yeah,
I can definitely answer that one.
Go ahead. I guess it's all you.
Okay. Has anybody been watching? Okay, there's the helium count, and they've taken that down recently, and then they have remanipulated numbers to make us all believe that the helium-1, helium-2, and helium-3 count are normal. Guess what? They're not. That is all coming from the extrasolar body that is in our system that is pushing the helium-3 exponentially towards our little blue planet. And no one has an explanation for this. When you have extrasolar particles which are being projected towards our planet, what you have is an exponential inflammation of all the active particles that exist around our planet. Well, we have helium, we have hydrogen, we have oxygen, we have, and then get into the very small atoms, the neutrons, the electrons, and the atoms, which are punching through Earth's atmosphere. Has anybody noticed how in the wintertime now, and I noticed it the other day, actually, I was out playing a round of golf with a friend of mine, and I actually get to do that once in a while because I can't afford it, but he pays for it. It's the middle of winter, but yet I feel the scorching sun on my arms and my face, and I'm actually having to put on, a sunblock so I'm not getting burned.
And
this is what's happening. This is what's happening.
I felt that in January. I was standing out. We had a warm day in January, and I thought, the sun is awful strong for this time.
Exactly, Peter.
Yeah,
this is what's happening.
Folks, we're missing some questions. So if your question didn't get answered, it's because we got a whole bunch of other junk that came in with them, and so I had to just get rid of it all because it was just too much to go weed through. So if I missed your question, you could resend it, and that's the best we could do because people don't follow rules.
Michael, the one thing I wanted to ask Dr. Rand last time we had a conversation, and it was so interesting to me, and I know it's a little bit off subject, but it is interdimensional, kind of what we've been talking about. Dr. Rand, we were talking about the little people, and I found it so interesting that you had this encounter with these, tiny little people, and you were saying they're interdimensional. Did they ever give you...
You're talking about my experience at Giant Rock.
Absolutely, I'm talking about that.
At Landers, yes. What is your question?
My question is this. Did they ever give you an indication that we were going to be facing this situation that we're looking at right now, physically on the planet, interdimensionally, I guess?
No. What they were communicating to me was the history of Giant Rock and the essence of the little baby hill mountain range that was located directly behind Giant Rock itself. Apparently, that was the site. Okay, let me go back. Over thousands of years, the Giant Rock, the rock itself, would draw people from all over the West Coast. These were some of them go back to even primitive people. More recently, from the 15th to, let's say, the 18th century, it was attracting various Indian tribes. That site itself is where two major ley lines crisscross. And it is at the center of that. Just imagine two huge lines that overlap each other.
Yeah, they're ley lines.
These are major ley lines that occur in that particular area of California. And the integratron itself is built directly over the intersection of these two major ley lines, which is what gives it its perpetual power. And the people that are controlling it now have no idea that the real mechanism was installed underneath the concrete floor, and it's perpetual, and it's still ongoing. It produces a beacon-like laser-type generated signal that goes straight up into the heavens. And this is how UFOs and ships like that navigate in our atmosphere. Now, I digressed from the little people. What they were telling me was, because this is what I asked them. I asked them, could you give me the history of giant rock and why and where this rock came from? And they said that they don't even know how it got there. Keep in mind, this boulder weighs 1,000 tons. It's huge.
That's extraordinary.
It's several stories high. It's 80 people could group together and circle it, and they would not be big enough to encompass it. There is no physical or reasonable explanation of where that rock came from. Do you understand? There's no mountain around there where it could have been blown out of from a volcanic explosion. When I asked them specifically, they said that it was placed there to balance off the electromagnetic energies in the area, because what the rock contained was certain minerals and elements that were needed to balance the electromagnetic ley lines that ran through that area. And that's what was attracting people all through the ages to come there, mostly drawn to pray and to meditate. And of course, the last 300-400 years, the American Indian cultures of that area, and there were, I understand there were at least 4 major Indian cultures that would come there. They would not fight. They would come there for 10 days of communication, relaxation, spiritual redemption, and that the little baby mountain behind it, which is now barren, was like an oasis. It had freely running springs. It had fruit trees. It provided all the food and nourishment that they needed, and that it provided shelter for them. There were small caves that apparently even back then, the more important people, could stay in the caves at night, while the rest of them, were out in their teepees or whatever form of shelter that they brought with them. And that also explains why George Van Tassel was able to produce these incredible UFO conventions. He did this for about 9 years running. And he even plowed out a runway that could take small planes in up to twin engine, big King Airs and Piper Twins, and that even back then, in the 50s into the 60s, there was still water available up in that area, and he had rigged some kind of a cistern system that he would collect the water and send it down. I remember when I first got there, the water tank was still there. After he died, the government came in, and they cleared off all the buildings, they cleared off the water tower, and they filled in under the rock. They desecrated everything that was there. That was part of their way of getting back at him, because he would never give up the secrets of what the Integratron did. Now, that's also covered in my book. Another plug. At the very end, I have 4 pages devoted to the Integratron, to the little people, and to the UFO conventions that took place in Landers. So that's my explanation to you on the little people. Now, they are multidimensional. Yes. They are highly intelligent. Yes. They're very spiritual. Yes. And they could communicate. Now, they communicated telepathically. They weren't speaking to me in little tiny voices, which I get a lot of people who like to pick at that. I personally, as described in my memoir, I have a fourth racer black crystal microchip implant in my frontal lobe that allows me, now I must admit, I have not been practicing and I haven't met anyone that I can really communicate with, but I'm able to pick up, especially in a crowd, every once in a while, I'll pick up some really weird thoughts, and sometimes it's extremely disturbing, and I always distance myself from that person, because what I've found out is that they can pick up on me reading them, and many people get incensed and violent because they feel that you're invading their personal privacy and their thinking, which is not what I do. If they give off a signal and I pick it up, it all has to do with the conversion of electromagnetic frequencies, which is what our thoughts are composed of. That's another whole show, Michael and guys. That's another whole show.
Okay, and we got about another, 15 minutes, not even, here to go. So any last impressions about Planet X and all that is? And I think we've got a couple more questions here. Someone says, I heard CERN is messing with our magnetic shield. Could this be the reason more UV rays are getting through? Guest thought.
Peter, step up.
I don't think that, well, yeah, when they turn it on, it's definitely going to affect it because it's a huge magnet. So it's going to affect the magnetic field, kind of like, putting the shields up, so to speak. But it's not something that they can sustain. And I don't think, I think once they shut it back off, you're going to turn around and the magnetic field would try to readjust itself. But what we are actually seeing is a collapse of the magnetic field in where it normally is and reemergences in other places. At least that's the latest data that I've seen. Well, it's already a couple of months old, but the magnetic field around Earth is changing. Exactly what's causing it?
Peter, I don't think it has anything to do with CERN.
No, I mean, it's got to be bigger than CERN.
Much, much bigger. You're talking about a very small blip on our planet that has, yes, they are giving it a whole bunch of electrical power in order to make that thing run. My personal opinion is that they are trying to open up, take it with a grain of salt, folks, because I don't know if I really believe this either. They're trying to open up some sort of portal, I guess. And I've heard the different stories, I'm sure, as you all have, on many different websites. But I just don't know. I think they're trying to explore the deep inner space. Of course, they're trying to penetrate the atom, and maybe they discovered, an interdimensional hole, which possibly has opened the eyes of the so-called, white scientists instead of the dark scientists who already have all this technology. I'm not real sure about that, but my personal opinion is no. No, they haven't been able to do much of anything with that except cause people a whole bunch of problems and energy depletion.
I would agree with you on that. A little bit more on what I think that they're trying to do, and here again, based on biblical prophecy. All the prophecies in Revelation chapter 8 are complete. And now we go into Revelation chapter 9, which is essentially a continuation. And this is where the fallen star is given the key to the pit of the abyss. And when you research what the pit is, it's pretty much the same thing as what Peter and Jude talked about, and also talked about in the Book of Enoch, as Tartarus, which would seem to be an interdimensional or another dimension into which the most corrupt of interdimensional life forms have been sentenced to, basically an interdimensional prison. And what I believe they are trying to do with CERN is to open up a gateway between what is known as Tartarus, or the pit, and here planet Earth. I try to ignore the connection between CERN and Revelation chapter 9. And when I say ignore it, look for other explanations. But when you read the events of Revelation 9 and you look at what they might be trying to do with CERN, it's like, uh-oh.
Well, that doesn't sound like a very good idea.
Well, yeah.
And I agree. I agree, but one quick point. I mean, if you have this whole pedogate that's really been blown wide open, when you're looking at a photograph of the pedo podesta holding up the fish sign, the 14 in the, I believe, in the right hand, the fish, and the 14 in the right hand, trying to basically tell the rest of his pedo buddies, hey, you know what, we're Satanists, we perform certain acts, and, we are demonists. It would tell me this, Peter, and this is just the flip side of this, is that they are practicing and participating in satanic ritualistic scenarios where and we're talking about top governmental officials, which can be as high as it can possibly get without being, figureheads, because they've always put themselves in the background, but yet now they've all been exposed at this point, that they maybe are trying to, extend their lives, be rulers of the planet, which, kind of falls in line of the whole New World Order thing. But I'm not sure how succinctly that all falls in line.
It's all connected, trust me.
Got a question. Oh, I was going to say there's a question here about the overflow of the Oroville Dam as well. People asking for comments on that. I don't know. You think it's going to get worse or better? I don't know. California didn't like Trump, and now they're being punished. See?
Michael, we
don't go against God.
I mean, come on, guys. All you got to do is follow what's going on. I mean, there's another big, heavy rainfall coming in. I'm in Arizona. I'm the direct descendant of what's happening there right now. We're talking another heavy downpour that's happening right now. And by the way, it's not just the Oroville Dam. Almost all the dams in California at capacity. That's not the only thing they're dealing with. It's just that overspill has been breached and severely breached with the damaging of the emergency overspill that's in major danger. But now that the other water's coming down, God forbid, I hope that doesn't happen. You're talking about 200,000 people losing everything you have in an instant. I hope that doesn't happen. But I'm just laying it out for you as it is right now. You've got
Robert. It's a matter of the chickens coming home to roost. They had the opportunity.
Jason, I agree with you.
7 years ago, they were told, they were warned by the Corps of Engineers and a number of other credible environmental agencies that they had to reinforce both. There's two spillways, one on either side. Both of those were severely damaged in previous breaches 20 years ago. And
You're absolutely right.
The Democrats, who've been running California for like the last, 50, 60 years, they said, no, let's not worry about it. And so they poured all that money into other wasteful projects when they should have been dealing with it.
And the people allowed it. The people there sat back and didn't do anything about it. You want to go protest and break windows and all that when a conservative wants to speak. You should have been standing up when you seen that there was a problem with these levees and these dams. So they better get busy. It's time to speak up. Might be too late now.
Michael, you know what I think, Michael? I think they ought to take Mike Brown and bring him over to the dam and make him physically try and plug up that dam.
I'd plug it with him.
Do something for the first time in his life. Actually do something for the first time in his life.
You're talking about
Jerry Brown, excuse me, not Michael. Jerry Brown, thank you. Make him actually physically do something for the first time in his life.
Well, plug the hole with him.
There's one other situation that's going on here.
Maybe he could Twitter around with Linda Ronstadt and maybe have her conjure up some black magic and fix the hole.
Hey, Ira's here with us too. There, he just tuned. Sorry, Ira, I had to bring you in. Skype's being a little,
problem.
You know what?
No problem. I know how it is.
Oh, is that our hero?
Hey guys, I just had to call in real quick. Ira? I'm doing, it's an interesting night. Let's just put it to you that way. But I had to throw in here real quick. You guys were mentioning that storm over there on the West Coast. Do you guys know what they named that storm? Did you guys catch the name of it?
No.
Lucifer?
Lucifer.
Get the hell out of here. Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, there's one other thing that's going on here which nobody is taking into consideration. Yeah, the dams are all filled. But with this storm, which is supposed to drop somewhere between 2 and 12 inches, let's just take a medium of 6. That's
Peter,
approximately
Peter,
30.
that 2 and 12 inches is a lie. That's another lie.
What's
not
supposed to be
2
coming
and 12
down?
inches. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 feet. It's a massive overflow of water that's coming in. That's another lie, and that's all they do is lie and lie and lie.
Okay, well, I did the calculations on 6 inches per square foot. You're looking at 31 pounds per square foot of pressure, just based on those numbers. If it's 2 to 3 feet, let's just take 2 feet, okay? If that's the case, we're now looking at 128 pounds of pressure per square foot.
Listen, are you serious? They called this thing Lucifer.
Yeah, it's named Lucifer.
I've got to turn the Weather Channel on here, and then I'm going to mute it, so bear with me for a minute, folks. I wouldn't normally do this, but, I mean, if that's the case, if I was you in California, I'd get the hell out of there.
Think about it. Think about what they said. They called it an oceanic river coming in from the clouds.
You got it exactly.
This is what they called it.
Yep, you got it exactly. Guys, I got to take off, but I just had to toss that in there. I didn't know if you guys had caught that or not.
That was great. Yeah, I had seen that earlier today. Is Lucifer really? Okay, well, it's California.
Ira, be good, Ira.
You too.
Thanks for the call, Ira. Thanks.
Take care, Ira.
Yeah, thanks for adding some spice there. I mean, if that thing's really called Lucifer, and it's not that I don't believe him, I'm one of those guys I gotta see.
I saw it, Michael. They're
shit!
Lucifer. It's like, are you serious? Well, you got all those Satan worshippers out there.
Hey, Peter, they had the Baphomet sexual ritual opening of the tunnel in, what was it, Holland, I think it was?
No, it was in Switzerland. The world's longest
Listen,
tunnel.
I want to give advice.
The world's longest tunnel. It was all goat heads and satanic rituals and sexual abominations.
Listen,
a lot of people believe that was connected to what they were trying to do at CERN. That's why they put on that show. It was the opening of the tunnel, the opening of the pit. And so it was a symbolic ritual for what they're trying to do at CERN, only adding more circumstantial evidence to the support of Revelation chapter 9, which when you read it, it's a release of an alien invasion on the planet. It's the rise of Apollyon. So,
well, I'll tell you this,
total
Peter.
Aliens.
They use the Bible as a playbook against humanity.
Well, you could say that, but this was something that was written, if they're following the script, then great. But this is something that John saw and recorded almost 2,000 years ago. So if they're following the playbook, it's pretty good because we got aliens. So when you look at it technically, yeah, we've got aliens that is going on. And if you want to talk about it technically, we're talking about Jesus, who may have had, it may be in his fourth reincarnation, if you want to call it that, because he starts off as the Word, then he becomes Michael, then he becomes Yeshua or Jesus, then he becomes the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, or he is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords now. So you've got four different entities tied up, or forms tied up in one entity. And that's where we are now. So we are in this regime change, and that's why I said we're going to have one timeline end. You know, the people that have been supporting this system and continue to support the system are being shown this terribly dramatic timeline. What I was shown was, you know, after I took this fantastic class,
I got to see this.
1978, I had to see what Armageddon was like. And so I went down into deep Delta, and I saw what Armageddon, well, as much as I wanted to see. And then I didn't do any meditation for 3 years after that. So yeah,
I'd like to leave us with a Planet X thought, and then I'm going to get off the line.
Be
and let you guys take it. I'm concerned that at the end of 2017, September, October, November, if what my ET contact has told me over the last 3 months is accurate, although the time frame on the last thing I was told didn't happen in Mexico, although there was a dramatic increase in UFO sightings, they didn't land, and I think I figured out why. I'm told that this escalation, and we never really got to Earth changes tonight. I guess we got to do another show. The earthquake ratio right now is knocking them dead. Knocking them dead. The 6s, 7s, 8s are off the chart. There were 3 7.5s to 8s in the last 2 days in the Ring of Fire.
Jason, can I ask you?
Yes.
I was just going to ask you something, and if I think I'm correct in when I do ask you this, were they all about 10 kilometers below ground?
Very shallow. They're getting stronger and shallower with each series. Now, if I'm correct, and I don't want to be correct, if I'm correct,
but you're going to be.
This next spate coming into the end of the summer could trigger a series of major global earthquakes, not just the Ring of Fire. And if we lose a couple of major cities, and if something drastic hits the Middle East, it will shut everything down, which means there won't be any threat of nuclear war, because if the major cultures are struck by this, meaning the Middle East, and we lose a few major cities, it's over. It's over. I went through the earthquake in '94 in Los Angeles. I lived through it. There was nothing where I lived, working for 3 weeks.
That was the Paloma earthquake, wasn't it, Jason? Paloma?
That was the Northridge.
That was
earthquake.
Northridge? Okay.
But there were 2, and they lied. Here you go, guys. They lied like hell about it. There were 2 quakes. The Northridge quake triggered the Santa Monica quake. The Northridge quake, they said, was a 6.8. It was a 7.6. The quake that hit in the coast was a 6.8. They lied, okay? Trust me, they still haven't rebuilt parts of L.A.
But Jason, they would never lie to us. They would never lie to us.
No, of course not. Of course not. I know that. You know that.
Well, I'm looking right now. I'm looking right now where there's 2 cars swallowed in a sinkhole. This is in Studio City, California. Boy, there's a lot of water there. And I also see there's a lot of water, a lot of water footage. I'll tell you, that sinkhole don't look good. It swallowed a couple cars. But I haven't seen the name of this thing yet. It hasn't given no name.
Michael, mark my words, the next thing that's going to happen is that you've seen these massive sinkholes opening up because of the liquefaction that's taking place and the shift that's going to take place.
Hold on. 4 storm-related deaths in California, 61,000 customers without power in Los Angeles. LAPD says stay off the roads due to flooding, and I guess some people are saying they're not telling you just how bad it is. I don't know. Sorry about that, Robert, but I'm learning Michael, tonight you got to push.
The only thing I was going to say is the next thing to watch out for, and be aware of this. Watch all the newspaper websites worldwide. The next thing you're going to see, I swear to God, is we've seen big whole buildings being swallowed by sinkholes. I swear to you, the next thing you're going to see is an entire city block or maybe several city blocks being swallowed by sinkhole, and that's when the SHIT is going to hit the fan, because it's never been seen before, and that's going to be a direct link to what's happening from our friendly planet X.
Guys, I don't want to be a stinker here. This is really, you don't want to kick a state when they're down. But didn't they say they wanted to succeed from the United States? I bet they don't want that now.
Let them go, Michael.
Well, yeah.
They might sinkhole out of the United States.
They just might. They just might. I'm telling you, what I'm looking at right now. It reminds me, this is going to be much worse, but it reminds me of what we had here in Colombia, where the tropical storm parked over us and just kept dropping the water. Before you know it, I watched roads caving in, houses floating away. Thankfully, we didn't, we were up enough, high enough where we were located that the water came up our road, but it stopped a few houses before us. Thank God.
Hey, Michael, I'm sure CNN was there going, hey, there's nothing to see here, folks. Move on.
Oh, well, I don't know if they were. I didn't really travel around much, but yeah. I mean, and what I'm seeing right here, California, I'm telling you, if you are anywhere near any danger area of flooding, I wouldn't wait. I'd get out of there. I really would. I would get out of there. What I'm seeing, I'd get out of there. I mean, that's my advice.
There's nothing like being in a building. It was 4:20 a.m. in the morning when the quake hit. The building I was in was 2 stories. I was on the bottom. I remember hearing it before it hit. It was like, if you've ever been in a subway and you hear the train coming, and then you feel that rush of air through the tunnel.
It's the quickening.
It shook for 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
Wow.
I heard the walls coming apart. I heard my door snapping. A lock broke and went right through my headboard, missing me by about 6 inches. The lock in the door was forced out by the tension of the twisting.
You know,
you do not want to be in an earthquake, especially near the epicenter, which is where I was in the Studio City area that got hit.
Well, someone asked where I'm getting this info from. I'm getting it from I think the best place to look right now is the Weather Channel, because you're getting live footage. But we'll go ahead, Doctor.
They're by the way, they lie a lot too.
They do, but I mean, if you want to see what's going on, they're like,
Yeah, they try, but they're restricted.
Well, of course, yeah, I know. But I mean, when they go cameras live, I mean, I saw the sinkhole. I mean, so they didn't hide that. They showed it.
No. Guys, I'm going to let the rest of you guys carry the show. I'm going to be listening. I was just thinking back on that experience on the 17th of January, and I'm getting a little emotional because I almost died in that house. in that apartment.
I'm sorry about that, but you're alive.
Guys, thanks for being a part of the show. It was great. Michael, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, Dr. Rand. Thank you for joining us, my friend, and stay safe, and we'll talk again soon.
Jason,
Let's plan
the best.
another show, guys. Let's plan another show.
Jason, you take care of yourself, and hopefully we can do this again.
All right, Robert. Peter, you behave yourself now.
Oh, there's no fun in that.
I know you want to get back to the boonies, so just keep it together, Peter.
Yeah, we're waiting for the snow to melt. You know, it's like watching paint dry, only takes longer.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Rand, have a great night, and thank you, and keep your eyes posted to that storm, because you just, you're not near it, so blessings to you.
Keep one thing in mind. Everybody says that they have no idea how mental telepathy works. What in the hell do you think prayer is? Just think about that tonight.
Doctor,
what do you think prayer is?
That was something that I pondered years ago. It was after I had my first, vision of the future, and then living through it. It was like, okay, well, if I could pray to God and you could pray to God, how come we can't communicate to each other? And the truth is, we actually can. Science has unlocked the key on this, and it happens in the theta state. And I did an experiment on this, and it was like surprising how well it does work. So I know exactly what they found, because I conducted my own experiments before the scientific. I found out about the scientific ones. But when we get down to 7 hertz, the right hemisphere of the brain engages, and every human can have the knowledge of every other human on the planet, as long as that human, that other person is also in sync with the same, with the same basic vibrations per second. So all brains that are at 7 hertz or below can communicate and do communicate, and that we can know each other's knowledge. That's an interesting thing. If we ever started putting our mental capabilities together, we could certainly do whatever we wanted to do.
Well, Peter, how about this? That psychic communication happens with every human being on the planet. Hence, and I'm sure both of you are aware of the WebBot with Cliff High's work, where he captures the psychic consciousness of human beings, and therefore is able to put out his report, and has been accurate up to about 60%. But here's the even greater thought on that. I mean, the psychic connection, psychic communication I have with my mother, I'll have a thought, and she'll say exactly what I was thinking a few seconds after that. And I'm sure everybody has encountered that. And, and that is psychic communication. That is the higher thought consciousness process that we are that we all have, every single one of us. We are just so dumbed down with the so-called schooling of social skills, socialization, the utter nonsense of psychology that that has no place in our social society. But the reality is that everything they've taught us is all a bunch of nonsense, and what we actually understand, that we are capable of understanding consciously and higher consciously, is the truth. But we are just inundated with stupidity on a constant basis.
Well, here's a question.
Well, let's, guys, okay, go ahead, but I'm going to give you the floor. And Robert, I want to give you the floor, and we've got to end this thing here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, we're like going into an hour overtime. Here's a real good question, one I've asked many times. How many times have you said to yourself, I knew that was going to happen?
Hundreds.
Yeah, so if you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you change what was going to happen so it didn't happen? See,
because I was too stupid to actually follow my higher conscious thought.
Yeah, now I'll give you a quick example of this, and then you have the floor. I was going to a going away party for someone, and we're notorious for black ice around here. And so I usually would take a shortcut, but I figured, I'm going to stay on the road more traveled. Well, just about a half mile before the shortcut, I get this vision, clear as day in my mind, that I'm on my way to the party, and this car skids on black ice, bounces off the guardrail, and hits me head on. Comes across the road and hits me head on. And I thought, you know what? If I'm not there, that possibly couldn't happen to me. So I said, I'll take the shortcut and be real easy. And I get to my destination, no issues. I go inside, and the hostess is just getting off the phone, and she says, "You're not going to believe this. Some people left the party here about 5 minutes ago, hit black ice out on 01, hit the guardrail, and totaled their car out on the other side of the road." I said, "Oh no, I believe
Peter,
that."
So Peter, you want some chills going up your spine? Going to a friend's house. I'm going to give you the same exact scenario. Go to a friend's house. I had to go back home. We were having a poker party. Going back home, having to get whatever I forgot, driving back, a wave of information came over me saying that there was going to be a car that was going to pull out in front of me at a light. The light was green, red on their side. They were going to pull out in front of me, and there was going to be an accident. As soon as I realized that, I slowed down. The light turned red, the car pulled out right in front of me, and I averted the accident, which I could have been severely injured or killed. Same scenario. This happens to everybody. That's a higher consciousness connection to the ethereum of the fourth and fifth and sixth dimensional planes, and every plane above that. Either that's direct intervention being sent to us by higher conscious beings, or because our mind is connected to them, everything is instantaneous. Like I said, in the universe, everything exists simultaneously, and we were just able to capture in our small third-dimensional world being consciousness that we were able to capture and bring that down to avert a serious disaster.
Well, this has been my life's work since the age of 9, now going on 52 years.
Well, you got me by 2 years, Peter.
But it was at the age of 9 that I got to see the future, and then I lived through it. I had a dream, and exactly almost identically to what happened in the dream, I lived through real life about a week later. And I had to know how that was possible. It created a paradox in my life, which sent me down the scientific trail to answer metaphysical questions, and then that turned into taking all the miracles in the Bible and converting them into scientific explanations. And that's when I started that project. I found nothing but science from Genesis right to Revelation.
Oh, incredible.
So, yeah,
incredible.
It's all science. And here's the wild part of it. The science that we need to comprehend the Bible, the true message in the Bible, hasn't been invented since my conception. 1955, we discovered DNA, and right in Genesis, you need to know biological engineering in order to eliminate the miracle of the creation of Eve, or the creation of Adam, or the creation of every other life form on this planet. And so it all combines together in the prime directive to send us into the future. You know, it's all there. We have a marvelous future. We are on what we could call an evolutionary path, but it's a spiritual evolutionary path along with a DNA regeneration. And so that's where we're headed.
Cleansing. Exactly. You have to cleanse in order to move forward. Michael, I know this is going to be short, so I'm going to say I want to thank you very much for having me as a guest on your show tonight. I love calling into your show. I love talking to your guests. I hope we can do this again. Please continue your network. You're one of the few that perpetuates, the idea of open talk, real open talk, without any nonsense. You allow everybody the floor, and give everybody their due diligence in expressing themselves. I just want to thank you again. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope we can do it again, Michael.
All right, thank you. And Peter, thank you as well. Anything else, guys, before we're done?
Robert, it's been a pleasure talking with you this evening. And Michael, thank you for having us on the show. Folks, if you haven't read it yet, Letters to Earth, The Future is Yours. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or you can go to my website, www.peterkling.com. And if you make a donation, I'll send you a PDF copy of it. So with that, I'm going to say love and blessings to all gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure. Michael, thank you for the format. Robert, it's been a pleasure talking to you, as I said. Love and blessings to all.
Same here, Peter. Thank you.
All right. Good night, Peter. And Robert, thank you so much, my friend. And good night to you as well.
Thank you, Michael.
Good night. Good night. Have a good one. All right, folks. So there they go. Interesting. I mean, it wasn't all Planet X, but then it never is. I mean, when you got as much time as we've had tonight, you're going to move along to other things.
Thank you for listening to the first hour of Late Night in the Midlands. To finish listening to this episode, go to lnmradionetwork.com and become a subscriber. Becoming a subscriber is easy. There is a link on every page to take you to the subscription page. The cost is low, and you would be supporting Late Night in the Midlands and all of our efforts to bring you the truth. Again, go to lnmradionetwork.com, click on the subscribe button, and you can finish listening to this episode as well as all of the other shows that are in our archives.